Hey guys, what's up? We're here for a very special episode of Horror in 1983. I have Ryan Smith from Dreamhaven Books. How's it going, Ryan?
Good. Thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for being on here. Now, Ryan did a commentary on Her Vengeance with Art Edinger and Bruce Holecheck, and he probably, in terms of people I know, he knows more about any Hong Kong horror movies or Hong Kong films in general than tons of people. I've talked to him. I met him at Wasteland, and he sold me a book, of course. And yeah, we just got to chatting, and he's helped me out with a lot of these Hong Kong movies, and it's really appreciative. And we're going to talk about the Shaw Brothers five kind of horror or horror adjacent kind of most of our horror movies that came out from Shaw Brothers in 1983. So, I think we'll start with the boxer's Omen. We're going to start with the most popular. I don't want to bury the lead here. I mean, I know that's probably the quintessential Shaw Brothers horror movie, but I do want to talk a little bit about Shaw Brothers kind of a little bit before they got to the early 80s, because this is kind of the tail end of them, and they're competing with like Golden Harvest and other companies, and they start to lose kind of, I guess, their top dog status, and their films get a little bit more bizarre and a little bit more like a lot of the other films trying to branch out and everything like that. But I want to kind of brush up on Shaw a little bit, or Ryan will come in handy here and talk about their horror movies. The sparing, they didn't have that many horror movies, but before leading up to the 80s, where they kind of had more of a flood of fantasy and horror for a short bit of time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could even go back even further than the 70s for these kinds of things. Now that we're seeing these new releases of these kinds of movies, a lot of people are finding out about like Oily Maniac for the first time, may not know that in 1958, Shaw Brothers did an Oily Maniac movie called Sumpa Orang Minyak, which is Curse of the Oily Man. So it's something that they had touched on way earlier in the early part of the Shaw Studios. Really interesting movie too, and I would say that anybody that enjoyed the Oily Maniac film should go back and look at the. I know of three Oily Man movies from the late 50s that people should really check out.
the Oily Man kind of story. I've only seen, of course, the one from '76, the Jaws kind of inspired one with the Jaws music, but it's really fits in with a lot of this stuff because that myth came from I don't remember what South Asian country, but it came from one of those kind of myths about the Oily Man. And a lot of these movies also kind of focus on, countries, different countries, and like South, it would be East, no, Southwest or Southeast Asia kind of area, like Taiwan, not Taiwan, Thailand and stuff like that, where they have these like kind of myths come into play, and a lot of the black magic and things come from those countries. Then kind of like an American movie where they're like, well, we went to this country and this kind of thing happened. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
Yeah,
that in these Hong Kong movies. So like the oily maniac stuff seemed to stem from some sort of, I guess like a, I don't want to say
I, be-
cryptid, but some sort
I
of
think
weird
it's
ghost thing.
Malaysian, I believe, is the
Yeah, yeah, that's
and
right.
that's kind of where the origins of the Shaw Studio started anyway. So there's something that they were probably all familiar with. Actually, the guy that directed it, P. Romley, actually stars in the movie as well. Um, if I would recommend that one, Orang Minyak also, and then Sarankin Orang Minyak, which is the Oily Man Strikes Again. So, and I think these are all public domain. I know at least a couple of them are on YouTube. So if somebody wants to see them, it should not be that hard, I would imagine nowadays.
And I think I didn't catch a lot of the early Hong Kong horror movies at all. I think the earliest one I probably saw had to be from the '70s. I think it was the Enchanting Ghost would be 1970, right? And I remember that story being very in line with like a lot of the Japanese style stories of being like haunted by a jaded lover or something along those lines. And I remember it being interesting. But I don't think that they're more just kind of classic ghost stories and less the kind of crazy stuff that people kind of associate with Shaw Brothers.
Oh yeah, they certainly grew into that. You could go back even 10 years further than that. The Enchanting Shadow from 1960, which just got a beautiful release from imprint in Australia. So I'm going to assume that the UK and US may soon follow suit and we'll see a good release. But if you're impatient like me, you might order that imprint release. It's a really beautiful looking Blu-ray, and it was one of the main inspirations for Chinese ghost story much later. So I think that when people get to see this, they'll see, oh wow, I mean that's really a neat thing that we're seeing sort of the skeletal starting of Chinese ghost story in this film.
I also noticed when I'm going through all these 80s years, a lot of movies will be listed as horror and they'll have that horror tag. And most of the time they're just TV thrillers. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then some of the Shaw Brother movies won't be listed as horror and they'll have these big fantasy kind of subplots and everything, but they dip into horror a lot. And there's a lot from 83 that kind of dip into the horror. Descendants from the Sun, the Holy Flame of the Martial Sword, or Martial, is that what it's
Holy Flame
Holy?
of the Martial World.
Their martial world. Yeah, it's always the martial world. People are, I'm
Yeah.
out of the martial world. I got to come back in it. It's, but yeah, th those ones are a couple from 83. The Weird Man is another oddity, just completely bizarre movie that I caught just by chance on the new release.
Yeah, and one other movie I would like to mention, the first like, and I believe it's from 1937, Song at Midnight was the very first Chinese horror film that I saw, the earliest one rather. Um, and it's definitely inspired by Phantom of the Opera and maybe a little bit of The Hunchback of Notre Dame too. Um, and same thing, I believe that's also public domain. And I'm not sure what's out there now because I've had my copy for so long. I haven't bothered to look at what's out there now, but that's another one. If you really want to see some really early Chinese horror, that's a good place to start, is that one.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen that all that many early Chinese horror. I think my starts the 70s and definitely the 80s because that's kind of my like sweet spot in that kind of horror, the most approachable. But I'll watch absolutely anything. I enjoy almost all foreign horror before a certain period of time. Um, so Shaw's, what do you say their big kind of standout point was the 70s? They started dipping into like the exploitation movie for like overseas markets, right? And they kind of had some hits with like killer snakes and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, I would say even maybe just slightly earlier. I mean, I did a podcast a couple years ago, and I had a quote from Run Run Shaw where he said, "When the market is soft, that's the time to do erotic movies," is what he called. But a lot of times, these erotic movies also have the horror overtones that we love so much. So I would say even earlier, but yeah, definitely the 70s is when it really kicked into high gear.
And that definitely brings us to our first movie, Boxer's Omen. Just to mention that the director was always told that he had to put these harsh elements into his films to sell them, even though he was not necessarily thrilled to do it. But he sure pushed them pretty fucking far. You compare it to a lot of the other directors.
Yeah, he called them gimmicks. I read an interview with like, the audience wants to see these kinds of gimmicks in these movies. And Shaw was like a really structured sort of studio. If you were a favorite, you would get to use whatever you wanted to as far as like the studio space and resources and things. But if you were relegated to a lower level, like apparently they thought that Kuei Chih-Hung was, you would have to fight for almost everything. And I guess he was really gave them a hard time as far as like he would argue with them about certain things. And maybe we're lucky for us that he did get relegated to the horror films because he was so damn good at it.
He's very good at it. There's another director I do want to mention that he must have not been very, he must have not got along with Shaw Brothers at all because he only ended up directing two films, both kind of horror exploitation films. The director of Men Behind the Sun. I mentioned him because he had a couple early in the 1980. He had part half of Haunted Tales, which just got a Blu-ray release, and he did Lost Souls, which if you haven't seen is one of my personal favorites because I am a unhealthy individual, I would say. But it's just incredibly mean-spirited and just downbeat, and very it's also one of those movies that definitely kind of condemns the system that they're living in.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but T.F. Moo, who directed the movie, knew that if he didn't have a working script, that nobody was going to check on it. So they would act, and this is when he was making Lost Souls. So he did this movie, always said he did not have a script, and then eventually he finished the movie, and Run Run Shaw saw the movie and was just like, he couldn't believe it. And he went to the producers and was just like, how could you let him make this movie? He was so upset by this. So I think that probably had a lot to do with why he did not stay with Shaw very long.
I can imagine. So all his movies are kind of just unpleasant is the only word I guess that you could call. I mean I enjoy his work, but they're just unpleasant. Like in terms of just mental stuff going on in them, like Naking Massacre and stuff like that. Just really brutal stuff. I do want to kind of mention that the director of Boxer's Omen, he liked to push buttons too, and they were talking about I think it's the third Hex film, which is super light and super silly. The original branding scene in that, which the gag with the Shaw Brothers branding of the character was actually originally supposed to say 1997 in reference to the time when Hong Kong go back to China, and somebody saw that and was like, mm-mm, no, that's not staying in here.
I believe it too. He really did want, from what I've read, that he really did want Hong Kong to go back to the Chinese.
Oh, did he?
At least from what I read, that he would prefer that. But so I'm not sure exactly what what his meaning of 97, if it had to do with it. I'm assuming it had to do with that
Yeah.
he was sort of ready for that sort of thing to happen.
Man, that movie though is all full of all kind of like meta joke stuff where he's poking fun at Shaw Brothers for like using the actor as a stunt man, getting the shit kicked out of him, and then he's like, "Well, they don't do it. They don't pay us enough at Shaw and all that kind of stuff like that," which is funny. And you could tell he's kind of what was he? He's definitely an outsider or something. Somebody that's definitely trying to just do whatever he wants in the system.
Yeah, he always wanted to put, you know, political sorts of things in these movies, regardless of what type of film it was. Um, One of the things I wanted to mention about those Hex movies is I always wondered why the shift from, Hex as a basically a horror film, and then the second and third film doing the comedy. I always wondered why the gear shift there. I
So I
like the
wonder.
movies.
The first one, I was disappointed the first time I saw it, but rewatching it, I liked it a lot more. I think I was just ready for it. Visually, it's an amazing movie. It has a lot of great atmosphere. There's like one comic beat in it when when the movers are moving the stuff and they start making they get the scare ghost thing. But that's such a typical Hong Kong kind of scare or any movie for that matter, to be honest. But second and three, I wonder if they were making it and then they saw Encounters of the Spooky Kind and they're like, this has to be funny. This has to be funny or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Lo Mang is so good in those. I always thought he did really good comedy, even all the way up to like Ebola Syndrome as the restaurant owner, where he is so funny in that movie. I can't even believe it.
He's that's Toad. That's the deadly venom Toad, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I'm so terrible with a lot of these names too. I don't want to butcher their names, so I'll let you do the pronunciation. But it's kind of like there's only so many actors that you've seen. I went and saw my letterbox today, and I got my stats back for January, and all of them, all my top actors were all Asian actors and all from Shaw Brother movies. And the funny thing is they were like the bit actors that aren't the stars because they're in 50 movies. And so I'd be like, "Oh, you've seen 30 movies with this actor." And I'm like, "Oh, I guess I did." But yeah, he's great in Ebola Syndrome. And I would have never put two to two together with that he was in the Five Deadly Venoms and Ebola Syndrome you know what I mean? Until you start to like register it. I know that now. But the first time I saw Ebola Syndrome, I don't think I had seen the Five Deadly Venoms. Honestly, I think that I'm more of a horror guy, so I seen a lot of the horror films and that kind of Cat 3 category stuff before I saw a lot of the older classic Shaw Brothers stuff.
Yeah, he was just amazing. I mean, he's still super famous over there and golden arms because of the kid with the golden arms. That's still what everybody calls him over there, apparently.
So in the 70s, we mentioned briefly, kind of running up to Boxer's Omen. We had several movies that weren't from Shaw Brothers too. Encounter Spooky Kind, We Were Going to Eat You, and that kind of plays in. There's just tons of The Imp, I think is worth mentioning, and a lot of these were co-productions like Command of the Snakes. So they definitely had a lot of competition. And I think that sometimes they were trying to kind of lift from them, but a lot of them never really could get away from that like wuxia fantasy element that they had in their movies. So like something like Portrait and Crystal and Enchantress are still very like heavily steeped in classic Shaw, but just mix in horror elements.
Yeah, I mean, I heard an interesting thing on one of the commentaries for this movies where the guy basically thought that these movies that came towards the end of this Shah era was basically the Shahs finally sort of loosening up and saying, "Oh yeah, just go ahead, just go for it," instead of having such control over all aspects of these movies. It sounded like they were finally maybe willing to take some chances on some of these things. And too bad, it was right near the end.
Yeah. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about Boxer's Omen, which for your money, I think is probably the craziest one. And I'm actually very happy that I did not see this one first. Because if I would have saw this one first, maybe the other ones would have felt a little less. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If that makes any sense. But Bewitched is same director, made 2 years previous. Is basically this is a sequel to Bewitched. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but Bewitched is a fantastic kind of black magic police procedural kind of combination here, courtroom drama somewhat. But yeah, so this one follows the Abbot from the original film coming back. I don't remember if it's actually the same actor or not. I don't think it is. Is the Abbot the same actor from Bewitched?
I don't believe it is.
I don't
But
think it is.
there is a scene in from Bewitched near
Yeah.
the beginning of Boxer's Omen, which ties it together.
Do you want to bring up do you want to do the description of Boxer's Omen, or would you want me to handle it?
Go ahead, let's see what you got.
Okay, so we have a Thai boxing match against a Thai guy played by Bolo Yeung, and is it who plays the brother? Is it? It's not Melvin Wong, is it?
No, it's
He looks like I always confuse him with Melvin Wong. I swear he's in Lost Souls, isn't he? This guy.
I believe so.
He's
I'm
one of
trying to
the
think of the guy's
villains.
name off the top of my head.
I shouldn't even brought up his name. I'm trying to think of it. Well, his brother is basically fatally injured in some sort of Thai accident, well, Thai foul move. And we kind of jump forward and we realize this guy is involved with the criminal element, which is a very brief part of this movie. And he's about to be murdered, but Abbott kind of mysteriously pops in and gives him the boxer's omen, I guess, if you will, and saves his life. And he come to find out that he is directly connected with this Buddhist monk who is the one who fought the villain in the original Bewitched. Now he's been bewitched, and this up to the boxer to kind of walk in and become a monk and save both of their eternal souls slash lives. But our villain here has a bunch of students as well. It becomes completely insane. Part boxing movie, part sports kind of movie, part crime film, and most of all, fantasy, black magic, horror, gross out film.
That's a good way to describe it, I would say. I always found this movie amazing. And back in the day, because I'm old enough to remember how difficult these things were to find back then. Way back in the day, back in the early 90s, really the only legit release that I knew of Boxer's Omen was a PAL VHS tape. And boy, that thing was difficult to find. I never did get the actual physical tape, but I did get a copy made off of it. And, it was just like what you would expect back then, full frame, very difficult to watch, but you could kind of see it. It wasn't until Celestial in 2008 signed the deal with the Shaws that we finally got a real version of this movie. And it is spectacular looking film. It's just utterly stunning. Some of the set pieces in this thing. Um, it's lunacy, like Holy Mountain type.
I was I was going to say the same thing. Very Jodorowsky, surprisingly.
Yes. I may have been a fan of this movie for so long, and I love Phillip Ko Fai in it, besides his wig.
I was, definitely he's wearing a wig in the movie. I was like, why is he wearing a wig? This guy has a nice set of hair. Then I was like, oh, it's because they probably didn't shoot this in order and they had to shave his head bald to be a monk. And they went back and filmed the other stuff. They probably just filled, we'll keep him bald, put the wig on when we need it, take it off when we don't need it.
I
Because this
think the
movie,
Yeah,
three locations, right? Hong Kong, Nepal, and of course, Thailand. So,
yep. I think the wig is actually worse than City of a Ghost for him, but we'll get to that one later.
yeah. I recently just saw a movie with him in it, and he has a brilliant performance in. I'm sure you've seen it, On the Run, the crime film with Yuen Biao.
Yes, but it's been years since I've seen that.
He plays one of the villains. It's like a villain cop group, and these guys are like as fun as like the villains from like RoboCop. He's one of them. Low lays one of the other ones, and he's got these sunglasses on the whole time, and they're just brilliant. And I was like, oh, what's the? I was like, I had to look him up, and I was like, oh my God, it's that guy. He's in this, and it was so refreshing to see him as like kind of a goon, but they're really great in that. That's a very strong movie. I was very happy with it, but. No, this guy's in how many movies? He's also a director, directed numerous low budget action kind of films as well.
Oh, he's done so much stuff. I mean, it's just one of those guys where it's like you go and you look at their filmography, and I believe it's up over 250 films. And then he produced some things, like you said, he directed a few things. He's just been all over the place. Wrote some things even. Um, I've always really enjoyed him, and I think he's great in this.
He's very fantastic, and it's a lot to do for this role. So there's one thing I noticed while watching this. So, in the original we have they mentioned that to the villain has to they have the big like magic showdown, which is very prevalent in almost all Asian supernatural horror films. They always have the showdown. And more modern movies, even like the Korean movie The Wailing has the big supernatural showdown, which is probably really cool to see that in that movie. Um, but in the first one, we have to bring out the character's animal. All the villains have like an animal that they worship, and the first guy's a bat, and it's pretty infamous, little bat creature, adorable, uh, little creature special effect in here. And this one we have about three. We have the three students, and we kind of see all their kind of little statues that they kind of worship, like what is it, a lizard, a spider, and I want to say I can't remember the third one, but they're all these guys is the one thing that I figured they're not actors. These guys are definitely not actors or big actors because they're not in very many movies. The four people that do the practicing and stuff, because the stuff that they do I don't think you could ask an actor to do that. The gross out stuff where they have the one shot where they're eating all the nasty stuff and spitting it out and making it stay in one shot on purpose to gross out the audience.
That scene is unbelievable as far as like, and it's not only just chewing up the stuff, it's spitting it back out on for the next guy to put in his mouth and add to it and then stuff it into the mouth of the girl that they've got lying there. It's
Minimal cuts.
yeah, and that's so Chinese to do something like that. That's like, let's not use fake creepy crawlies. Let's use like real centipedes, real worms, a real eel. The eel
The
scene
eel.
is just like that scene is incredible to me because I've seen it with so many other things, but that's the only one I could think of that's like, wow, that's a real eel that
Yeah,
just
like in
came out of his mouth.
The Devil, the 1981 movie, they'll puke up like worms and centipedes and stuff like that, but nothing that big of an eel. And if they do eels, they're usually the small black ones. This was like a fucking moray eel. Like it was this size of it was huge. And he definitely had that in his mouth.
Oh, without a doubt. And then I love that the eel is just kind of like, oh, I'm out of here. Just jumps down the toilet and he's gone.
Yeah. That looked like some reverse kind of whatever filmmaking in there. But it's funny because they're so effective when they just use like, well, let's use a real chicken here, but then we're gonna have these terrible fake spiders that look worse than the Beyond. It gives a really weird like surreal quality in the film.
It's worse than the pipe cleaner Fulci spiders.
Yeah, I think they are. I think they are actually. But these guys do a little bit more. They spit up acid or whatever. But it's one of these things where I didn't want to get caught into it, like saying this is the craziest thing ever. Then this happens. Then this happens. But it's really hard not to, considering that there's just so many bizarre things in this movie that just top the next one and the next thing that happens. And as a huge fan of movies that I guess people, well, art would call them confrontational cinema. Like, I love, my Last House on the Left and Cannibal Holocaust and stuff like that. And I've seen some pretty gross films that have made me squirm. Um, this one might take the cake. It's top tier, disgusting movies ever made, I think. Just in terms of eating the stuff, it made me really sick. I can't think of one more.
It's up there. But Bewitched also has its share of really the wizards, the pot with the fetuses and things inside of
Oh,
it
I couldn't
is
believe they did that.
as a really vile scene. Um, so Kuei, I guess those are Kuei's gimmicks that he liked to perpetrate upon us.
Yeah, and it's so funny how different something like the Hex movies are in comparison to these. I mean, the first Hex is similar to, but just more tame, and then the second and third one are just out and out comedies. Kind of realize how versatile these directors actually can be.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick, this probably would be my top Black Magic film. Obviously, I love Black Magic 1 and 2 and all of the other films in this, but this to me is has been my favorite one for quite a long time. And you know, the people nowadays, I hope they appreciate how beautiful these versions of these that we're getting. It's just remarkable to see these restored to this.
They definitely use their lighting too. The Hong Kongs would definitely use their greens. I think green is probably the number one color in these movies. They'll use a lot of blues, but this one goes they use tons of colors, the bright red stuff. This one is also different from the other ones because I think it dips more into the surreal world, while the other ones don't tend to feel surreal. Like Bewitched is almost just we're gonna cram in as many spells as we possibly can. While this one is definitely just more interested in the actual showdowns and just going through these elaborate, insane. I do not know how they came up with this stuff, if any of it is based on any sort of real rituals or not.
I would say probably not,
Yeah,
but
no way.
no, I don't think so. Another one of the cool looking things in this movie is I love that prismatic effect that they use where it's like it looks like rainbows surrounding everything. I love that. And it's used in a bunch of these type of movies right in this time period. I don't know what it's called. I'm not a
I don't
cameraman,
either.
so
I know
but
there's
I
definitely like
love it.
a I prefer that kind of stuff, like the in-camera tricks, or even when they put like the electricity over the screen into like the frames and stuff like that. I've always like like that more than CGI, and I think that probably just stems from what movies I watched when I was growing up. You know what I mean? That never looked bad to me or fake. It looked natural, but I think that's probably just a time when I was born. You know what I mean? And watched the movies I did.
Yeah, I really like Elvis Choi in this movie, even though he is basically, sort of a corpse there. It's a really interesting character, and I really like the connection that they were brothers in a past life. And, that's how I know who you are. And that's why, if you don't help me when my body rots away, then it's the end of you too. So you have to help me.
Yeah, and that's it's a very strange opening too because he meets him, he's just in the alleyway and we don't really know why he's in a has a criminal element. He goes somewhere with like a box. I don't know if the guy was the boxing coach or something. The character, and they kill him and they're ready to kill him, and then his spiritual twin comes out and saves him from it. I guess that's what refers to the boxer's Omen there, and saves his life, but we never go back to that crime element.
No, not one bit. I don't know. I'm not sure why that's in there, to be
It's
honest
very
with you.
bizarre. And
Yeah.
Bolo
And,
Young plays the same character he plays in every movie I've seen him in. Just a big asshole. Like,
I, and it is really reminiscent of that scene in the Van Damme movie where he basically cripples the guy's brother and he needs to revenge for
oh,
him.
he jumps on Donald Gibbs' head in a blood sport.
Yeah, I believe, and he gets hurt horribly. And I haven't
Yeah.
seen that movie in so long, but every time I see this, I'm just like, I wonder if whoever made Bloodsport
Oh, I'm
watched
sure they
Boxer
did.
Omen.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they knew who Bolo Young was for sure. Because I
Or
mean,
may,
he's infamous. I mean, he's the biggest, like the giant pecs and the skull is a scroll. You know what I
yeah, who knows? Maybe Bolo is just like, hey, let's do this.
mean? Can I cheat all the time in every movie I'm ever in?
He's really good at it. I'm trying to think of what else. Who else is in here that we should talk about? Maybe the Wai Ka-Man, the girlfriend who is also she's in Devil Cat, she's in Sitting of a Ghost, Taxi Driver, she's in Ghost Festival. She's not in that many movies, but obviously we see her both in this and Sitting of a Ghost.
Back to back.
And
She has a worse end in Seating of a Ghost, of course.
oh my God, yeah, yeah, we'll get to that, but that's
Yeah.
unbelievable too.
I feel like we're not giving this movie that much justice, but I just didn't want to run down the line of this movie's got this and this and this. It's an international movie, which is cool. It definitely has that element of going to exotic country like Bewitched or Black Magic 1 and 2, but it's a little bit different in the fact that it's multiple genres, but not the typical genres that Shaw Brothers usually mixed. I don't think I've ever seen a Shaw Brother movie quite like this. It kind of stands on its own. And I think it's a must see for any cult film fans or horror fans or Shaw fans, really.
Oh, 100%.
And this was actually a first time watch for me. It was the movie from '83 that I saved for myself because I wanted to have something to look forward to because I think I've seen almost everything else that is a big movie. You know what I mean?
Really? So you
Yes.
literally just saw this for the first time?
I watched it
Un
twice though.
Unbelievable. See,
Yeah.
I am slightly jealous of these types of, there's so many people that haven't seen these kind of movies. I was like, wow, I wish I could go back in time and rewatch this again for the first time.
It's I've seen a lot of probably seen every Shaw Brothers horror movie from the '80s up until this point, you know what I mean? Like, but I kind of just doing these order year things, and I think that Hong Kong was one of the last countries that I didn't give a lot of love to. I watched all the Cat 3 movies and stuff like that, like Red to Kill and Run to Kill and Ebola Syndrome, and I saw on Earth on Told Story years ago. Like that was probably the first Hong Kong movie I ever saw. Probably I don't know, 16 years old or something along those lines. So I liked them. I enjoyed them. But, when you don't want to open that can of worms, and these movies weren't that easy to find. But I did have this DVD and it sat on my shelf since when it came out and I never opened it because I probably bought it when I was 16, 17 or whatever.
The Image DVD of it.
Yep, I had that, and I had a couple of my Human Lanterns as well, and I had a handful that I had Lost Souls, but I did watch Lost Souls. I saw that one very early too, and that made a lasting impression on me.
And this was a frustrating one for Celestial because towards the tail end of Celestial doing the DVDs of these Shaw Brothers movies, they started putting the horror titles only out on VCD. So it
Oh,
wasn't until we got that Image DVD in the US, and I refused to buy the VCD of Boxer's Omen because I did not like VCDs that much.
they're
So
odd.
yeah, so I was so disappointed that we finally got to the point where, yeah, we're gonna get the Boxer's Omen on DVD, and then no, they're like, nope, sorry, VCD only.
The problem with the VCDs is I didn't really have any of those because they're a little before my time, and I collected VHS, but VCDs in America weren't easy to come from unless you were like and walked into an Asian market or something like that. And I've been to an Asian market, but I see like a bunch of weird DVDs on the shelf now. Like we go to get some food or something, get some special stuff, but I didn't really come across too many VCDs. But when I find VCD rips of movies that only have the VCD rip, you go to rip them, and the way that they're formatted is very unfortunate because you rip it, and the Cantonese is in the left and the Mandarin is in the right. And what happens is the sound effects share the same time, so it's all the same sound effects, but you have this echo over each other, and so you basically have to rip it and alter it yourself and edit the damn thing and fill in left with right, but depending if you want Mandarin or Cantonese, you know what I mean? It's a pain in the ass. They're a pain in the
Yeah, and
ass format.
it is. It was a pain in the ass back in the day, and that was the same thing when you would pop it in your DVD player. That's how it would sound. You'd have to switch it to one side only, depending on which dialect you wanted to listen to. And I just didn't like them. Some look better than others, but my God, those things were really blocky looking.
Cheap, cheap.
Yeah, and that was the point of them. I did buy a whole bunch of them just to get some of the category 3 titles that I was having a hard time tracking down on VHS or Laserdisc, just so I could at least see them.
I still have a couple Cat 3 movies on Laserdisc, a couple I never even watched. But now at this point I'm waiting for a Blu-ray like Diary of a Serial Killer. I have that one sitting on Laserdisc and Brotherhood of Darkness, Brother of Darkness, but I have seen Brother of Darkness. So I've
Okay.
seen a lot of those ones. Yeah, I've seen that one and the Two Daughters of Darkness movies, but I have a Brother of Darkness Laserdisc, I think, and a Diary of a Serial Killer Laserdisc. But yeah, some of the stuff is so expensive now. Like you can get this stuff relatively cheap even 15 years ago. You could find it not at a bad price. Now everything is just astronomical, ridiculously priced with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they were super cheap. I mean, I'm old enough where I could just go into the Chinatowns in various cities and go and see shelves of them, before all the video stores went out of business. They were quite easy to find and easy to order as well, just if you wanted to go online and order them.
I remember buying the Fortune Star DVDs that they had really cheap, like Sentenced to Hang and stuff like that. I'd buy those Devil Fetus, and I collect these movies. Her Vengeance was one that I saw pretty early on, and I'd have these like nice little box movie sets. I still have a few of them, but I tend to get rid of them when I get them on 4K now. You know what I mean? It's just you can't keep everything in unless it's a different version, then I'll hold on to it, but that's not likely.
Yeah, I've done similar things over the years. And, I always want to point this out to people how frustrating and rewarding at times to collect Hong Kong movies back in the day because you literally had to buy the DVD, buy the LD, get a VCD of it just to find out which, if any of them, are uncut. And it was crazy how many different versions of these things were on these. And so a lot of money was spent to try to find the definitive versions of these movies.
It's like that now. Nowadays, people make composites of them and put them up there for everybody to see, which is nice. Um, I do want to mention that people wonder a lot, I think, that stuff like Boxer's Omen and Bewitched and Corpse Mania never made it on a Video Nasties list, but they never got released in America or the UK. They never got any release date. That's why they don't have any English dubs of those movies. Or most certainly, maybe we wouldn't have seen as many Shaw Brother horror movies past, 1980 because these movies would have most certainly made it on the video nasties list.
Oh yeah, and I'm kind of surprised we didn't see more of them in the UK just because of the
Me
connection.
too.
Um, I mean, there was a few things like the Beasts from 1980 had a UK VHS release, a dubbed one, but that one didn't end up on the list, but
It should
probably
have.
could have.
I mean, like if you think of some of the stuff on the list, The Beast is brutal. I love that movie. That's a great movie too. Dennis Yu, he also did The Imp. Those are both good movies, underrated movies. No, Ronnie, yeah, Dennis Yu did The Imp and The
Yes,
Beast, right? Yeah, those are both
yes.
great movies. And I don't know why they don't have wide releases. Maybe something
I'm
to do with,
hoping that we do. You know, the Beast, I
yeah.
think, certainly deserves it. Anybody that's a fan of like Last House on the Left. It's kind of like a rural Last House on the Left, is how I always like to describe it. And then The Imp is just a tremendous early 80s horror film that we still have not seen anything past the DVD. So at least we have that.
We got both Kent Chang in both those movies playing very, very radically different characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And eventually, 83, he did The Accident, which I love him in
Oh,
too.
I can't wait to watch the Hong Kong movies from '83 that aren't on the Shaw list when we get to those. There's definitely going to be a second video with 5 or 6 movies, 5 or 6 more Shaw ones. We should mention this director. He kind of made one more movie after Boxer's Omen in '84 for Shaw Brothers, and then he kind of guess got out of the business. Shaw was closing shop, and he moved to America and opened a pizza shop and died at 61 years old, unfortunately.
Yeah. Misfire was the last one that he did. And well, it wasn't me that said this, but people say that that is an apt title for
Yeah.
the film. It's
Uh,
not one of his better things, and it really was a bummer. Kind of like an earlier sort of like kind of feel the same about Lam Nai Choi, where it's like, boy, I really wish you would have kept making
yeah.
movies. They were just so good at it.
And his last movie, The Cat, is great. So, I mean,
Oh, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, that's a
Actually,
fantastic, and we got that on Blu-ray.
I have a cat T-shirt on right now. Actually,
That movie I adore. Today I just ordered the import of Peacock King because I got Saga of the Phoenix and watched that, and then I was like, well, I haven't seen Peacock King. It's the first movie. I'm lost on this. I
exactly.
was like, I have to see this one, so I ordered that one too.
Oh, you'll enjoy it. You'll
Yeah.
really like it. Um, Yeah, I wish we could have seen a little bit more from Kuei Chih-Hung, but it just wasn't meant to be. But we're still to the point where we still haven't seen a few of these. We're getting more of them have been released, but where's Curse of Evil?
Hell,
Where's
yeah.
Spirit of the Raped? Those two certainly deserve. Where's the Criminals series? Like
Curse of
really
Evil was a huge one that I
I
love that
love
movie.
I love that movie. And we still haven't Ghost Eyes. Where's the new we need a new upgrade of Ghost Eyes. I really love that movie.
I've been holding out on a lot of these movies to wait to see them at this point now. Like Killer Snakes doesn't even have a nice release yet. So, and that's a big one. That's a popular one too.
Yeah, I think probably the same thing as Boxer's Omen. The Image DVD still is the best way to see that movie right now. Um, it's
We sh
certainly not for everybody, but I love that thing.
Oh, I'll be fine with it. I'm a fan of Calamity of Snakes. I can't imagine it getting much worse than that. I was my jaw dropped when I watched that one for the. I was like, "Jeez,
I
just
wonder
gotta
if
show."
I always wondered if like so there's a similar scene in Killer Snakes as there is in Calamity of Snakes. Who's the snake chucker? Who's the guy who's off camera like chucking snakes at somebody to whack with a sword? I'm always just like, I wonder if they brought that guy back from Killer Snakes in
Oh, I can't
Calamity of
imagine doing
Snakes.
that. Can you? Like, I just
No,
like I'm not doing this, guys. I'm out.
no, no,
Like, I'm
no.
not doing this.
Yeah.
Can't imagine it.
I'm glad to watch the movies. I do love both movies, but yeah, that I would not be doing that.
A time and a place, man, and that time is past. It was past then. Let alone in '82, it was past. I don't know what the hell they were doing, but it's a different culture, I guess, different place, different time. I do want to mention that the director did a movie that I really enjoy. It's not a horror film called The Killer Constable, which is fantastic and probably one of the darkest of its kind. It's a fantastic movie.
I would honestly, I would put that as maybe my favorite wuxia film of all of Chinese film. It kind of reminds me of some of the darker Japanese samurai films in a
Yeah.
way. And actually, Phillip Ko Fai is in Killer Constable too, and I love his character in that. He's really dark character in that movie. Love it.
I only watched it the one time, and I was listening to actually listen break down a podcast on that when they were talking about how dark it was, and they broke down a lot of the character motivation, and I was like, oh, this is really unsettling once they put it that way. You know what I mean? Just watching it, I was like, and visually, it was a fantastic movie, but like thinking back and sitting back on it, I was like, that's a much better movie than I thought it was. I still liked it, but you know what I mean? Sometimes it takes time to reflect. It's a much deeper, darker movie. You can see why they probably did not like that movie very well. It did not do well when it came out from reading about it.
Yeah, I don't think it did. And it's once again, Kuei still likes to put his political sort of overtones into these things. And that movie, Killer Constable, more than a lot of movies, really sort of outlines the huge gap between the ultra rich and the poor in that movie.
Which is a huge thing in a lot of the Shaw Brother movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They'll
and
do
he
that a lot.
makes the people in the countryside look, I mean, they are like they're literally starving to death, where, they're having huge feasts in the palace when they're going out looking for these people out in the countryside. It's like everything they come across, everybody is just miserable everywhere. Yeah.
It might not be a horror film, but it's filmed like one, most certainly.
Oh, it is. I think it's one of the greatest things he ever did.
In fact, he's a great director, fantastic director. I do want to mention the composer, and there's like a pair of composers that seem to do most of the horror films. And I'm not sure if it's kind of like a stock library music, kind of like something like where they pull from like pieces or something, because the music's very similar in a lot of these movies. But they did it for, the music for all four of the five movies we're going to talk about today. They did it all for every one of them except Ghost Galore, and they did it for like Hell Has No Boundary and a couple of the other ones in here too. Human Lantern. So it's just got to be. Is it like a stock library that they pull from? Because it's like the synthy stuff that was in the latter day Shaw Brothers stuff.
I think they would have listed it as from the DeWolf library because a lot of it came from there.
Yeah,
Um,
this stuff wasn't from the DeWolf though. This was not
no,
DeWolf.
no. But two of the movies that we'll talk about today, Seating of a Ghost and The Enchantress, there are the same pieces of music in both movies, in addition to all of the American movies that they've stolen the soundtracks from. I will never do it, but I would love to just go through my collection and how many Chinese films use the Phantasm soundtrack or pieces of the Phantasm soundtrack in it. There's a lot of them.
When I went through 82, a lot of the Taiwan movies and Hong Kong movies would lift. They loved Death Wish 2. Death Wish 2 was a big one. Howling and Poltergeist and The Thing. They just would freely lift these scores. And they're not the only ones. If you watch some of the American porn films, poor horror films like Phil Prince would just steal John Carpenter's entire like music and put them in his movies. And it's just like this fairly shittily shot porno movie in New York City with, average looking people in it with John Carpenter's like music in the background. You're like, what the fuck is this? But yeah, I think we can move on from Boxer's Omen. Just a fantastic movie, one of a kind, highly recommended. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I don't think so.
But we're moving on to the next film here, and this is the only contemporary film of the bunch. And it does, I would say it stands out more than the other ones, but we have Boxer's Omen here. This is Seeding of a Ghost, which is essentially their kind of rape revenge supernatural film here. Yeah, this is an oddity with the same lead actor in here playing a cab driver, which is funny with the obsession with Hong Kong movies and cab drivers. This is definitely a film that kind of tackles a little bit of classism, and I guess this would be the precursor to Pumpkinhead in a necrophilic, weird Shaw Brothers Hong Kong way. So, yeah, Seeding of a Ghost. It certainly is a very memorable and weird film.
Yeah, this was a really early video rental for me. I saw this right around 92 or so when I first started getting into Hong Kong movies. I'm trying to remember, it was either on the first, I would rent things three at a time back then. And this was either the very first or second Hong Kong film rentals that I ever did. We had a few really great video stores in the Twin Cities here. And I had a really good friend, a mentor named Bob Selvig, and he really guided me through these Hong Kong films. Always appreciative of him.
I think I'm trying to think. My grandfather was the one who got me into horror films, and then kind of was just kind of pushed along the way through, other friends and things like that. Probably people online and whatnot, and the video store, whatever I rented movie books. But Seeding of a Ghost was not an early watch for me. I saw it, I think I had this on DVD too, but I eventually watched it with the '88 films Blu-ray came out. A friend of mine actually sold me his copy when it was long out of print, and I watched that, and I had a great chance to rewatch it when it hit the Shawscope set, and it looked fantastic. But this is, I guess, this is the one. If I had to show any of these movies to a person that's unfamiliar with like foreign horror films, if they're more looking for this kind of standard taste, I would go with this one because it's got the contemporary feel and it takes place. It's more of a story I think they could kind of grasp and understand. This one does have a little bit more going on than your just kind of surface value, surface level kind of rape revenge kind of supernatural picture here. I definitely think there's a huge classism thing that runs through this one, which is pretty much in line with a lot of the other Hong Kong Shaw Brother flicks here. Um, so we have a cab driver here, and his wife is having an affair with kind of a rich playboy. He does not find out about it, of course, until after the tragedy happens. While him and his the playboy and his wife are out driving, they kind of get in an argument after they've gotten to an altercation with some kind of punk kids. And the punk kids follow her and rape her in this abandoned haunted house of sorts. And through magic, the husband is led to it, and he kind of figures out what's going on and forces a black magic practitioner to help him get revenge on the people who raped his wife. But it only gets crazier and weirder from then.
Yeah, this movie is really something else. One of the things I like about this movie is there's not a lot of black magic movies which show the effects on both the person who is paying to have the spell cast and the spellcaster. They both suffer horribly from this black magic curse that they're placing on the perpetrators of the wife's death.
So, I mean, it's kind of very a weird take on if you're gonna get revenge, dig two graves, but instead it's dig one grave up, kind of have sex with it, or somebody has sex with it, and then dig your grave. But it definitely has this weird kind of. I don't necessarily know how the black magic works in here, but it has the Pumpkinhead vibe. But it's before Pumpkinhead, so he's basically getting revenge on these people, and the more the revenge is taking, goes through, he starts to suffer. His body starts to deteriorate, while this kind of entity. This corpse-like entity, which is supposed to be his wife or uses the vessel of his wife, is starting to kind of gain power.
Yeah, and she just had passed away in the film. And when by the time they get to the point where they dig her up, it's like she's already been in the ground for like 40 years.
Yeah,
I
which
was
makes
amazed by that.
it makes me wonder if it's kind of like just putting the soul into a different body, similar to like kind of Pumpkinhead, where they go dig it up. You know what I mean? And then they kind of just use that as a vessel. But the weird oddity about this movie is it's kind of like, I don't want to say standard, but it has your black magic practicing stuff going on where people are getting cursed. They're eating things that they think are different things in a grotesque fashion. But the last 15 minutes of this movie turns into an all-out like tentacle nightmare little creature horror film that is just next level insanity.
Yeah, sort of Cronenbergian. S- Uh, the mouth of the creature sort of reminds me of Deadly Spawn, the
Yeah,
teeth that are in the
same
Deadly
here.
Spawn creature. I don't know which came first, but or if anybody saw each other's movies, but that always reminded me of that.
I feel like Deadly Spawn was one of those low budget movies that took forever to make. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we filmed this for 5 years in a basement. But yeah, I don't think that there probably were very many influences on each other. Maybe, but I don't know how to go about this one in a lot of ways because it's relatively short, if I'm not mistaken, on this one.
I think it's slightly over 90 minutes long.
Yeah, that's not. I think the next one's even shorter. But this one here, it does have a lot of downtime in comparison to something like the Boxer's Omen, but and it waits till the finale to kind of kick into the insanity. But there's a couple moments here and there, but this really plays out kind of like a standard rape revenge until it hits that supernatural bend, you know?
Yeah. It does take a while to get to the black magic. I mean, you right at the beginning, he runs into I guess the ghost master is what
Yeah.
they call him, who supposedly was a sort of a consultant on the film as far as like the black magic sequences in the film. I believe it's his only credit in the film, but I mean, he literally run almost gets run over by um Phillip Ko Fai, and basically he's just like laughing at him. He's just like, "Well, you just interrupted black magic. It's your rotten luck to run into me today. You could possibly die. Your family could die. I don't know."
Um, I this is one of these movies where every character in it is not good. Nobody's like besides the punk kids, nobody's really a horrible villain, but nobody's really a clear-cut good guy either. Everybody's got kind of a gray area about them. The rich playboy guy is pretty unlikable, but he does not deserve what happens to him.
Oh, Norman Choi. Yeah, he's been
Yeah,
in so many things.
I think I just watched one with him in it. He's the is he the villain in King of the Baggers, isn't he?
I believe so.
He's great in that movie, and it was really great to see him. I recognized him right away. He's also in We're Going to Eat You. I believe he's the old father in Dream Home, which is the father that she's buying the apartment for.
Yeah,
I think he's in that as well, but he's in a lot of films. Good actor too.
yeah, and ghost nursing as well.
Another
So
batshit crazy movie.
it is. But I've always been a big fan of his, and he's another actor where I mean he's 150 plus films this guy did going, and he's in Black Magic, the original Black Magic film as well. So he was certainly no stranger to doing these types of horror films over the years. But I really like his performance in this.
He's strong in here, and he has that nice house at the very end. Is that kind of climax with it where he has to end up fighting, and he gets due to his actions, his entire family and his friends are attacked at this kind of like fancy dinner party, which is insane.
Yeah, they like to play a lot of mahjong at his house.
Which is in I think almost every Hong Kong movie I've ever seen.
In
There's always
addition,
gambling.
yeah, in addition to the gambling parlor that Philip Ko Fai's wife is a dealer at.
Yeah. So there's a lot of parts in this movie where I was actually getting pretty upset while the characters are kind of like hiding out because at one point there's a you really don't know like Norman's wife. She's kind of like a side character until she's not at the very end of the movie. But there's times when like they're kind of like sneaking around and they come across both their partners and kind of have to lay low throughout.
Yeah,
It was very
definitely.
aggravating throughout the movie.
And she is a Korean actress,
Yeah.
and she's in a number of films. But this is to me is my favorite thing that she was ever in for sure. Um, And once again, we have the Wai Ka-Man. She is in this movie again as well. We just saw her in Boxer's Omen too. I like her in this movie. She's got a really horrible ending, but there's a really interesting when she originally becomes possessed. Is a really interesting scene of them determining that she's possessed and then trying to rid her of this spell that's come over her.
Towards the end of this movie, the poor doctor gets mutilated to the point where it's almost comical, where he's like standing around and it looks like his face is hanging on like it's like a mask.
Yeah,
Just fucking
he's
nuts.
but he is literally the only one who is actually like doing anything too. Even
Yeah.
after he gets his face ripped off, everybody else is just like terrified and running away, and he's actively trying to to do something in that scene. But I'll never forget that scene where that basically like placenta flops out of that monster onto his face.
It's kind of like there was a movie that came out a few like probably like 5 years ago called like Thingy, which is basically about a little like a live placenta like creature. It was like a dark comedy. It's kind of in vain at that or something where it's just like almost like a head with arms and legs like Hiroko the Goblin or something along those lines, but just very disgusting.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost
I
something
mean,
out of a Japanese anime.
yeah, I could see that.
As far as this one's concerned, it does have a kind of a really unique look in comparison to some of the other Shaw Brother movies at the time. Like I said, it's contemporary, so it has this kind of dark, gritty look. I guess the closest movie I'd say it looked to would be from this time would be Men from the Gutter, which is an '83 Shaw Brothers movie, which is the kind of crime kind of film by the director of The
Lam Nai
Cat.
Choi.
Yeah, yeah. Just talking about him earlier. But yeah, it kind of looks like that. It's got this dark, and I love the Shaw Brothers contemporary films because they just seem so much grittier and they're more shot on location. They're not on sets. Like Boxer's Omen is a little bit mixture of both. It's more of a location movie, like a lot of the Giallo would do. It's like we're gonna visit all these different locations. But a lot of the Shaw Brother movies, especially the wuxia fantasy movies, there's like half a dozen sets, and after you've seen them, especially the early stuff, they all tend to look the same, right?
Yep.
And I think that this looks completely different. Shot in the city in that big haunted house, it definitely doesn't feel like a set. Or the roads or what that the nightclubs and stuff. It kind of stands out. It's much different. Again, it kind of plays into that branching away from the typical stuff that people are used to seeing those Shaw Brother movies, and I think that's what makes this one stand out a little bit more. And plus, the director also had done Hell Has No Boundary, which is also not like any other Shaw Brother movies from the time. It's that more the wild possession movie with police procedural kind of elements too.
Which just got a really nice
Yeah.
release in that new Vinegar Syndrome set. Tremendous looking copy, and I've been a big fan of that movie for a long time too. And that was another one where I had a nice DVD of it through IVL, but now to finally get a Blu-ray of it is really nice.
I watched that for the first time for 1982, and I was shocked that nobody had talked about that in Curse of Evil at all. I couldn't find anybody bringing those movies up. And when I watched those, they are immediate top. Like, I mean, I'm watching over 250 movies from that year. They both hit my top 25 just because I mean, for first time watchers, that's pretty impressive. I thought they were really good.
Yeah, Curse of Evil and then Spirit of the Rape by Kuei Chih-Hung never really got, as far as I know, like legitimate home video releases other than the Z Eagle or Zy Eagle Shawbox from Singapore. So that was how I came to get really nice copies of those was to actually buy that box. So hopefully we'll see those come out because a couple things that were only on that box have finally come out, like Vinegar Syndrome on that same set, Haunted Tales.
Yeah.
That was the only way I could get Haunted Tales was on that box. So hopefully we'll be seeing those films that you're talking about soon too.
Well, and that's set. Why don't you tell people what that box is? Because I don't think a lot of people actually are aware of it. I wasn't until Art brought it up to me.
It's the Shaw Scares set from Vinegar
Oh,
Syndrome.
I meant the Singapore box.
Oh, the Z Eagle set. Well,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how long ago this came out. I still have mine and it still works. For how long? I don't know. This was a basically a hard disk, really nice package, sort of like a maroon little box. And you could only get it from Singapore. They would not ship it to the US. I tried to get them to ship it to me in the US. I eventually got it through eBay. Everything shows up on eBay, and I think I
Yeah.
paid probably $600 for this device. But at the time, basically, I want to, off the top of my head, I want to say it had about 680 Shaw films on there. And I really bought that box just to get the unreleased horror titles from that box. Haunted Tales was on there. All the Criminals series was on there. Spirit of the Raped, Revenge of the Corpse. These were all on this set with subtitles that probably I would 720p, probably a DVD quality. Well worth buying that set years ago, worth the expense, and I've enjoyed it over the years.
And there's a lot of movies that aren't on the set. I asked you about the Psychopath movie, which I don't know anyone that's seen that movie.
Nope,
Can't find anything about it.
nope. It's one of those things. I've been looking for that movie for probably 25 years, and I still don't have a copy of it.
Can't find it. So there's a lot of these that are still pretty rare. Seating of Ghosts is not one of them. Like I think this is probably where would you put this in the top 10? Top
As,
10 popular horror movies from Shaw Brothers?
as far as 1983, the year, or in general?
Period. I think this has
Oh,
got to be one of the most popular
I
horror
would
movies.
say so. I had a lot of friends, movie friends growing up back in the day, and even some of the fellows that did not watch a lot of Chinese movies, they knew about Seating of a Ghost.
Yeah, me too. I knew of this one even before I knew what the
Yep.
hell Shaw Brothers was. It was just
Yeah.
one of those kind of big titles.
I guess supposedly I've read this at a couple different sources and reference books. I guess this was originally envisioned as Black Magic 3,
Yeah, that's
but
odd.
but for some reason or another, they did not go ahead calling it Black Magic 3. Not sure exactly the story behind that or if that's even true, but I thought it was worth mentioning.
In some countries, Queen of Black Magic, the Indonesian movie, is the Susanna movie is named Black Magic 3 at certain points, and I think that there was some Hong Kong money in Queen of Black Magic, which just got announced for a nice Blu-ray release from Mondo Macabro along with Mystics and Bali, which are two great movies. I recommend people pick up if they have not.
Oh, without a doubt. I think
Yeah,
that's one of the, we've seen a few things come out over the last few years from Vinegar Syndrome and Mondo Macabro, but for the most part, the Indonesian horror market is pretty untapped. There's a lot of titles that
a lot of
haven't
good
come
stuff.
out. Yeah, and I have been a fan of them for years, and I will continue to hold on to my old copies until we see something newer.
And I think that Mystics and Bali and Queen of Black Magic are probably the two biggest horror titles I can think of.
That one and probably the one that's in the latest folk horror box set from Severin, Sundibelung. That one, if you have not seen it, highly recommended, and it's got a couple of the most famous scenes that Susanna ever did in her career.
Nice. I do want to mention the director. He's kind of got an odd history here. So he signed with an independent company at one point, but then he signed with Shaw in like 82. In 1982, Shaw signed with Shaw Brothers in 82, and right away he seemed to be making like horror movies. And they tended to do that with like Shaw Brothers. They'd get these directors to sign on and they'd like relegate them to making horror films. I'm not sure if that's what he wanted to do, but he would kind of secretly make movies back and forth for other companies under a different name, is what I was reading. So he'd make like one for Shaw and then he'd go do another independent movie and whatnot. And I've only seen three of his films, and of course Hell Has No Boundaries, Seating of a Ghost, and I Bloody Beast, I believe from '94, which is a Cat 3 serial killer movie that follows a standard kind of procedure where they have the serial killer and then it's a big trial and whatnot, kind of in that vein. But I remember it being a pretty decent movie as well.
Yeah, it's not bad, especially if anybody wants to see a Category 3 movie with lactation.
I don't even remember that. I remember watching the movie and thinking that was pretty decent. But I see so much weird stuff that like the kind of pinpoints and taboos in movies. I'm like, oh, I don't even register that was that messed up. You know what I mean?
I was watching so many of those back in the day. I mean, you would try to find anything that had that symbol on it in the
Yeah,
video stores and rent it. And oh my God, I went through hundreds of tapes and saw some absolute garbage. But
I bet.
when you would find stuff like Bloody Beast or Underground Banker, it was all worth it.
Underground Banker is nonsense.
Yeah, I love that movie to death,
It's
and
a fun
that's
movie.
another one where I'm still hoping that we've not seen a really good anything better than the Laserdisc. There not even really a DVD of it. The Laserdisc is still the best way to see Underground Banker and Bloody Beast for that matter.
Yeah, I recommend both of those. I think they're both 94. Maybe one's, yeah, I think they're both 94, right?
Um, yeah,
91 to
that's
94, somewhere around there.
okay.
Somewhere. I can't remember exactly, but
You
who
know
knows
that
if the dates are even right.
Yeah, this director, one of the movies that he's got listed on his filmography that I've not seen is Flying Corpse on a Foggy Night from 1959. I
This is
would
his
be
debut film.
I would really be interested to see that. I've not come across a copy of that yet.
That's the thing is there's so many of these movies that are completely lost. So when you go into it, it's not like you're not discussing John Carpenter or George Romero or even like Frank Henenlotter, where you can just easily access their career or ask them questions. There's a lot of kind of question marks. Like I said, with the composer, there's a pair of composers that did almost all the horror movies, but where they get their music or how they have their kind of thing. And there's also like screenwriters that pretty much have wrote 200 movies.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. Like for example, I'm sure this writer of this, is the same writer on frickin' the Boxer's Omen. You know what I mean? I'm not sure, but it would be likely that there's probably two or three writers that write all the horror films for sure.
Yeah, this guy also the writer did Ghost Hospital, which is just okay. I don't know if you've seen that at all.
No,
Um, it's a late 80s horror film. It's okay. You know, nothing like Seeding of a Ghost. I can certainly tell you that.
there's not anything quite like Seeding of a Ghost, but I will say that I was a tad disappointed the first time I watched this because it had been so hyped up. But by the time it gets to the end, it's well worth it. The ending makes up completely for this movie, and the ending is literally probably one of the craziest, most outstanding, kind of insane moments in 1983.
Without a doubt. I wish they would have survived a little bit longer making movies. I mean, it was their choice to go into TV, but
Yeah,
if we could have seen more things like this, that would
yeah,
have been something else.
and that's kind of funny because Italy, they lasted a little longer making movies, but TV kind of killed them too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would like Delamorte. Delamorte was one of the last like truly great like Italian sort of horror films
Yeah,
for
there's a
me.
couple around that time. One that came up before was like a Russian co-production, Dead Waters.
Oh yeah, the Mario Baino, I
That's a
believe is did that.
fantastic movie too.
It's
It's a little
good.
underrated, but I mean, there's only a handful of those that are that good. And then we get to like even the late '80s, they start getting really oddball silly, and we get to the film Mirage stuff where they're shooting in America, and it's just most of the time it's a mess, but it's entertaining. But they're not what they used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it appears that they were talking a lot about these movies. It tends that the Hong Kong audience wouldn't go see these movies if they felt like they could see it on TV. So they would avoid them. If like that's why they said something like Super Inframan didn't do that well. Well, they also had multiple reasons for that. I remember the commentary talking about that. But it just if they could see it at home, they wouldn't bother to go to the theaters to see these movies and whatnot. And a lot of these movies, particularly this one's probably made more for like an outside audience not in Hong Kong. This and Boxer's Omen probably for, Taiwan and stuff like that because the population is so much bigger.
Yeah, I don't know if they were doing as much if they could even screen this movie in like mainland China. I
No,
would
I
imagine
doubt
that
it.
there would have been a huge issue with that.
Oh,
With
yeah.
the
I don't think they could have done most of these movies, to be honest. There's got to be something in there.
yeah,
They don't even make horror movies in China anymore.
I've fallen so far out of watching those that I'm not even really sure what's going on in their cinema right now.
I think I saw a couple kind of action movies, maybe with like Donnie Yen in them, and they just weren't that good. You know what I mean? They're just not nearly as good as that they used to be.
Yeah, I agree. They're not really doing like straight kung fu movies or there's a lot of the sort of fantasy CGI looking wuxia kung fu movies, and doesn't do that much for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not into it. I'm not in the most modern movies though myself, so what would make China any different? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's hard for me to believe that this movie that we're talking about is already 43 years old now. That's
Yeah, it's odd.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to mention about Seeding of a Ghost?
No, I think we covered it.
I think we got it.
本院特別介紹一套令你疑幻疑真嘅特技時空巨片《水晶人》。水晶人變幻離奇，發出熒光，滿空飄忽，有時追殺，見者難逃一死。有時飄飄渺渺，疑幻疑真。神秘人隨手取月亮，吹送夢迷家。水晶人迷離撲朔，白骨琴，琴聲震五臟，水晶人。靈光血劍，劍起殺機，水晶人絕對使你感到離奇嘅巨片，本院即將隆重推出。
All right, the next one here is Portrait in Crystal, which is definitely more of a wuxia fantasy horror kind of mixture here, but it's got a really strong cast in here. Jason Pai Pao, how do you say his name? He's in numerous movies.
Yep, Pai Piao.
Pai Pao. He's in Men from the Gutter this same year. Fantastic performance. He's in the Holy Flame from the Martial World as well. Just a good actor. Usually plays a villain of sorts or a very kind of shady character. And he plays a hero in this one. Good role here. This is a super bizarre film, very straightforward, very fast paced from the director of Super Inframan and other handful of movies like Bloody Parrot, which is also completely batshit and weird. Yeah, so Portrait in Crystal, this one is in the, like 83, 84 minutes, 82 minutes, I think it runs, and it's very fast paced. Essentially, oh, you want to say anything before we move on?
No, go ahead.
Essentially, the plot is it tells you right away that thousand crystal that is X amount of years old. Well, people make sculptures out of it. If at the time of their making it, if they spill blood on it, the crystal could come to life and become vastly dangerous. So what's going to happen? Of course, there's kind of a little trickery in the very beginning where the I guess the comic relief sidekick has a nightmare where the crystal is bled on and it comes to life and he kind of is attacked, but he wakes up and he realizes that's not what happened. But at the end, because he was making fun of his friend talking about it, he decides to cut himself on the crystal to see what happens. And of course, to his chagrin, the crystal comes to life and immediately runs amok, and it goes out and kills three kind of well-known kind of swordsmen of the time. And that puts a lot of pressure on him. Everyone thinks that he purposely did this, and now he has a target on his back. And it also kills the son of a scarred Phantom of the Opera-like character in Poison Yama, who is after him and going to track him down to the ends of the earth. That's kind of the plot here. It's a very bizarre one.
It is bizarre. I mean, right at this time period, we got so many of these sort of throw everything in but the kitchen sink sort of films in Hong Kong, where you've got you mentioned Bloody Parrot. I would also throw in Holy Flame of the Martial World, the Enchantress, which we'll talk about at some point here, and there's a few others too that are these are really interesting time period. And like I had mentioned earlier, it seemed that the Shahs were kind of loosening up and saying, "Yeah, go ahead, do what you want to do." Um, I find this movie to be extremely entertaining. Not straight horror, obviously. We got fantasy elements, we've got the wuxia elements, we've got some horror overtones to it. It's just a really entertaining film, I think. And I realized that I made a mistake earlier and mentioned a character in Killer Constable. It was actually Jason Pai Piao who I was talking about, not Phillip
Oh,
Ko Fai.
yeah, he is in
I got
that.
yeah, I got it mixed up, and he plays a great villain in that movie. But anyway, I just wanted to clear that up because I realized I made a mistake earlier.
So this one's kind of odd because it's like a buddy movie as well, and it does have the kind of main character and his kind of sidekick, and they end up running across this hurt woman who ends up being the crystal that they're looking for. And the crystal's not actually a villain in the film, as you would think. The crystal is actually being manipulated, like many characters in the film, to carry out these these assassinations on the martial world, which is a very common theme in the Shaw Brothers world. People coming in and out of the martial world. The martial world is kind of a villain to somebody, a revenge on it, which is what happens in the Enchantress. But this leads this pair to this kind of isolated, I guess you'd say like island. What is it? Well, I don't remember what the island is called, but they kind of are here to this island to seek the kind of people who run the crystals and figure out why they've been framed while they're being chased by these bad guys. But the reveal, I think, is actually brilliant because the bad guy in here has one of my favorite lines. He says, "It's better to to betray the world than be betrayed by it." And his reveal, he's just such an absolute asshole. But yeah,
He is.
he's great though.
Yeah, and he basically lies to his friend's face and said, "Well, I wouldn't do that to you." Earlier in the film, and until later on, he's like, "You know what? I would do that to you or anyone else."
He doesn't care. Poison Yama is also a great character. He's absolutely awesome looking. He's got the Phantom of the Opera kind of mask, and you don't. And the reveal is that he's all scarred up, of course, but he's also a really cool character.
Yeah, and trying to create this poison to take
Yeah.
care of the crystals, which causes people's stomachs to explode a la Contamination, the Italian movie.
This is better pacing than Contamination, if I say so myself.
Agreed.
But so this is one of these times too, like it's like a Yuen movie who we'll talk about later. He constantly had all these poison movies in the like 70s. There's all these like, oh, I got poisoned, I got poisoned. In fact, one of the Shawscope sets has like 6 or 7 movies that are all completely focused on poison. And this one definitely fits in line with that, where characters are being poisoned, there's antidotes, there's these things like that. And once they introduce poison in the movie, you're constantly worried about being poisoned by sitting on something or being stabbed with it. So there's that element in here too. And this one is definitely one of these worlds where it has its own rules and like setups where everyone just accepts it. So you either have to be fine with it or just kind of be completely lost throughout it.
Definitely. Um, One of the things I'm always amazed at by these 80s films right around this time is just the way they look. They really spent a lot of time with the atmosphere and the set pieces and things. They're so fun to watch. And I think this one benefits from the shorter running time. It it just you get right to the story and just straight through, and it's almost nonstop insanity in this thing.
Yeah, and it's also one of these movies where it's lighthearted in terms, but realistically kind of lighthearted, where we'll have joking between, Jason Powell and his buddy. And his friend is a great comic relief, and he's very likable, and he's constantly getting hurt and everything like that. But then you'll have these actually genuinely horrifying moments where they like kind of stumble in the graveyard and Poison Yama's men to attack them. And they're coming from like the graves, and it's really violent. Um, but this one, it hits this point in the movie where you kind of realize that it's not going to be a happy ending. And I don't, I this is just such a weird comparison. Like the second Planet of the Apes movie, I know the ending of that film, when you see James Franciscus get shot in the head, you're like, oh, what the fuck is going on here? There's a scene in this movie where one of the characters dies because they're driven mad, they're being controlled by the villains. And the shot they decide to use, they definitely went for an artistic approach. You see from that character's point of view, like looking at the character and being pulled away from them like they're dying. And it was just really kind of unsettling, to be honest. And that kind of fits with this director because he actually got his start in school as a cinematographer. So he went to school for to be a DP, and he did a lot of DPs for Shaw Brothers, and eventually left, went and made more movies and stuff like that, and came back to Shaw Brothers to direct. So it makes sense why he's so good with effects and camera work.
Yeah, and he did some really interesting sort of movies in this genre. I mean, Love Bloody Parrot, I think
Bloody
was
Parrot's pretty good.
a tremendous thing that he did. Kung Fu Zombie was one that I also enjoyed, which was a you could rent that at a lot of places. He he didn't direct the other one, but there's Kung Fu from Beyond the Grave
Yeah.
and Kung Fu Zombie with Billy Chong that are both a lot of fun. And then he was involved in the Criminals series, which I'm going to say again, we still need to see nice releases of those because I think they only really had VCDs other than that Z Eagle Shaw box. Inframan.
That's a
Um,
classic.
it is. So
That's a classic.
he did toil in, fantasy sorts of films. So, and I think it really shows, you know, in his skill at doing these types of films.
This one also is incredibly violent. Like I know you guys were selling this as like this weird kind of like light like fantasy thing, but when the violence hits, it's gory. There's spikes to the head, there's exploding people, there's guts that blow up. So it definitely is a horror movie too. It's not just, a fantasy film. Like I would say the other ones like Descendant of the Sun and Weird Man are just like more fantasy with just tiny horror elements. This one I would say is a horror film. I do would say it's closest to Bloody Parrot. The only problem with Bloody Parrot is if you don't watch Bloody Parrot a couple times, you will not know what the hell's going on because there's thousands of characters that just pop in for a minute here and there to just be killed. Like it's like watching a season of Oz in an hour and a half where they introduce a character and then they're dead in 10 minutes later. It's kind of that kind of vein, but it does have that kind of element here too, where it has that mystery angle where the main character's being it's a frame up and him and his partner are trying to figure out why they've been framed and they're on their way to kind of discover it, but they run into like all the baddies and everything among that nature. So it's just kind of that one. And this is actually, I don't know if this is my favorite of the bunch. I think it's the easiest to watch. I don't think it's the best movie, but I think it's one of the ones that I think is just flows so much better.
Yeah, I think so too. And because you mentioned that, I have to mention that my wife feels the same way about Holy Flame of the Martial World. She was just like, what in the hell is going on here?
That one I got, but Descendant of the Sun, I was like, you know what? I could take or leave this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie. I like the movie, but I do prefer Portrait in Crystal over those.
Yeah, me too. I like the Holy Flame. I enjoyed that one, but I think Portrait in Crystal is my favorite of the kind of fantasy ones from this year for sure.
Yeah.
Leaps and
I
bounds, actually.
yeah, I think so too.
Great lead performance, great character, likable character. He also, I should mention, 1983 also has Demon of the Loot, which is a great fantasy one. Really underrated from what I've seen online, at least. I'm not seeing that much love for it, but I think that one was fantastic. And Jason Powell plays the villain in that movie with a musical instrument, which is fantastic.
Yep.
Which Poison Yama also has a musical kind of instrument that he fights characters with. So it's like that carryover. Not exactly a lute, but I think that it's similar. And I think that Demon of the Loot is the kid-friendly version of these movies. And I think you show your kids that one, and I would recommend it.
Oh yeah, and definitely maybe a year before Buddha's Palm as
That's a
well.
fun one too.
If you like these sorts of fantasy, slash horror sort of hybrid films.
And that's Lo Lei in there, East Island Chief, right?
Yes.
If you watch the English dub version, it will get stuck in your head because he's East Island Chief every time he runs up, which is a fun movie. Yeah, that's a good one too. But I would really recommend Portrait in Crystal. I think and I was reading like a Shaw Brothers ranked list. I told you about that. And
Yeah.
they had Descendant of the Sun leaps and bounds above this movie and Enchantress, and I was like, you're insane. Like they're just insane.
Yeah, I mean, we all like what we like, but the list that you showed me, I was just like, yeah, I'm leaning more towards your line of thinking on that.
It's just like I don't understand. Maybe we're just like we just like the crazier stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he
I
had
don't
some
know.
things so low, like Curse of Evil, and there was another one that you mentioned that he had really low on the list. Oh, Hell Has No Boundary.
Yeah.
He had much lower on the list. He had Haunted Tales like really high, and I don't
And
know.
Haunted Tales to me is average.
It it is what it is. It's kind of, it was not meant to be an anthology.
I could tell. Well, I don't know the
It
history of it, but I could tell Haunted Tales
there
was
were
not.
there were two there were supposed to be standalone movies and they never got finished. And that's how they reused it for Haunted Tales.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why there's only two of them. It's like Night Train to Terror or something, like two, three uncompleted movies thrown together, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I do want to ask before we move on past the Criminals movies. Are the Criminals movies equivalent to the Teruoishi Japanese anthologies like Love and Crime and Shogun's Joy of Torture and stuff like that? I feel like they might be in line with that.
I would say they're more in line with one of the things about the Criminal series is that they were supposedly like considered precursors to category three because they're supposed to be literally ripped from the headlines,
Oh,
sort of gritty crime stories, even though a couple of them do have supernatural elements to them. But supposedly, some of these things were taken right out of the headlines at the times,
of
the
course, it's a true
stories.
story.
So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I'll have to see those. I've been waiting to see them. And I'm going through the 80s, but if I would watch those when I go through the 70s if I ever get there.
Well, I think I can make it happen for you, Captain.
Yeah,
I
I
will
have
get,
copies, but I guarantee they're not as good as yours.
yeah, these ones, the thing with that Z Eagle set was not only getting the box was to figure out how to get things off of the box
Yeah,
in a high quality format. And those are been the best way to see the Criminal series. It's not even close. I've
that's great.
seen I've seen rips. The VCDs don't look that great, and I've seen other rips from the Z Eagle set, but they just don't look very good. They look like nth generation sort of copies. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, we'll get the Criminals for you.
thanks. Also, I'd really like to watch those. But yeah, I'd really recommend Portrait in Crystal. I think it's a little bit underrated Shaw Brothers flick.
Yeah, totally agree.
妖魂出击，心中漂泊难断。
我现在将我的魂放在你身上，
异度空间掀起极度深寒，
他们的血早就让我吸干了。我要出去把我的魂魄招回来。
真真假假，相遇并非偶然。
是鬼，是冤鬼。
阴阳相隔，其容肆虐人间。
你连我的声音也认不出吗？
天意，真是天意。
妖魂。
All right, the next one is The Enchantress, and I think the biggest point on this one is it's Choi Yun. Is that how you say his name? He's a very
Chor Yun.
Chuan Yun, but he's one of the kind of most prolific Shaw Brothers directors. I'd say probably the most prolific, besides maybe the Boxer's Omen director for this one. He did a lot of films that I really like. Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan and Magic Blade are both fantastic, and his horror films, he did Bat Without Wings and Black Lizard, which are both pretty cool movies as well. But yeah, this one's an oddity. I think it shares a lot of DNA with Portrait in Crystal. We have the opening where it just kind of sets up the whole story, right? Where there's this kind of magic fountain, and anyone who goes there kind of ends up dead. And we have this young man, this young martial arts guy, stumble in there, and he ends up kind of saving the life of a young girl. And they end up going into the kind of waterfall area or mountain area, and realizing that the mother is actually this evil ghost, the Enchantress, that kills any martial artist who goes in there. But she sticks up for him because he saved her life, and it causes friction between them, and this giant, epic kind of ordeal comes to place where we have her kind of tragic backstory.
It's an incredible looking movie. I will say that they really went all out on the there's so much fog in this movie. It's really unbelievable. I feel like almost every scene that you have in this movie there's fog, but the colors and the set pieces in this movie make the movie for me. Yeah, it's and the Japanese mother, you know, here we go again. I have a She has a problem with the martial world.
Of course, that's so
And
silly. She's like, "I'm gonna kill the whole martial world." That's
she
such a
does.
common trope in
Yeah.
these movies.
Yeah, and it's not even just like one person. She's like, I'm gonna kill like all the martial
It's
world.
not even like Portrait in Crystal where the bad guy's like, I'm just gonna kill the four guys that we kind of ruled with. I'm gonna kill my old buddies so they can't betray me. She's like, I'm gonna kill every single person that comes near me and any single martial artist in this world. She wants everyone dead because you kind of learn that she was Japanese and she came in with a group of people that wanted to train martial arts. And some tragic thing happened. She fell in love and she was betrayed, and everyone was pretty much killed, and she holds a grudge obviously for this. So there's a lot of kind of like Japanese element in here. You have the Chinese versus Japanese, which is kind of a common trope if you see a lot of these movies. If you see even the Jimmy Wang Yu movies, where they'll have characters come in that they'll ship in these guys from Japan as the main villains or anything like that. It's a very common thing in these Hong Kong films of the time.
Pretty decent cast, I would say, in this too. I think this was Max Mox's first lead role, if I'm not mistaken. Young Jing Jing as Shu Ling is really good in it. We get Lo Lei
Lung-Wei.
again, who is always tremendous. And then Norman Choi. We get
Again,
again
another.
Elvis Elvis Choi as well in this blink if you miss him sort of role. But I think it's a really confusing movie to me at points. I'm not exactly sure what if they meant it to be like that.
It's got some bloody parrot syndrome going on too. Well, they'll introduce these characters and then they'll die. There's a point in here where there's these three lanterns. They each represent a character. And when this lantern blows up, that character dies. And then it just cuts to these like characters kind of like meeting their ends or meeting the Enchantress. And you're just like, well, who are these characters? But they actually treat one of those characters' death as like the most mean-spirited thing on Earth. They make him kill his entire family on accident before he's actually put to death.
That was a pretty brutal scene
Yeah, that was
wh-
very mean spirited.
where he is,
Yeah.
seeing his family, sort of like having a vision of someone else, an attacker coming towards him, but it was actually his wife and then his kid.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
kid getting killed was pretty severe in that movie.
It's just a funny thing about the tone of Hong Kong movies that I don't think some people can get if they haven't watched a lot of them. Like, for example, Underground Banker, you'll have this like comedic joke scene, and then you'll have a child be set on fire. And then you'll go to the hospital and you're like, is this played for laughs or is this played for drama or both? And sometimes the tones of these movies. So for example, you'll have this like kind of light, like mystical fantasy stuff, and then you'll have a guy murder his child. And then you'll have these space characters come in, almost like a Marvel movie. It's just a very strange tone for people, I think, to grasp.
It is, and it actually has a fairly long running time,
Yeah.
I thought. And the Enchantress is, I don't know where she got her power from, but she is nearly invincible. They have a
Yeah.
very difficult time trying to get rid of her.
They basically call in like Adam Warlock-esque characters from space to basically stop her, and they still can't do it. There's these seven stars from this from space, and it's just the ending of the movie is completely crazy where they're going into like this alternate world thing, and everybody has to get out before the portal closes. This is a pretty batshit crazy movie, to be honest.
It is. I do like the movie, but the ending of the movie, while they are trying to figure out a way to get rid and kill the Enchantress, it just goes on too long in my eyes. It just they go from scene to scene to scene of her flying away from them and then miraculously getting revived again, and it just keeps
Yeah.
going on and on. Um, yeah.
It's the mistake where she gets captured a couple times and then escapes, which is always annoying. Like if you have your hero or villain get captured, then they escape, then they get captured, then they escape, you start to like kind of lose interest in the cat and mouse chase of it.
That was part of it for me too, where and both times it was the same thing. Her daughter runs to her side and she's like, "Oh, good timing."
Yeah, exactly.
And she
Oh,
said the same thing later too.
yeah. It's a good movie. It's entertaining. I just don't have all that much to say about it. I feel like the director is one of the most probably the most prolific in here of the directors listed. He's a great director. He's made a lot of good films. Um, and he tended to leave Shaw right when he stayed with Shaw until the end, until 85, and then they stopped making movies, and he kind of left the company. But he had a lot of big hits for the company. So I think he was probably, we were talking earlier about the directors that kind of got pushed in to make certain movies. I feel like this guy could probably pick and choose what he wanted to make at a certain point.
Oh, without a doubt. And he continued his career after Shaw for a little bit until I think maybe Bloodstained Trade Winds was the last thing he did. If you haven't seen that, it's a pretty good crime film, a very
Yeah.
bloody crime film.
I've not seen that one. I mean, I like almost all his movies that I have seen. They're all pretty strong, especially Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, which is just a fantastic movie. Well, it has a love angle in there too, and betrayal. And this one is definitely has that same kind of theme of love and betrayal in the end. I think the storyline's pretty good. The whole love kind of story and how the character has to step up and do what's right, I guess.
Yeah, I like a lot of his earlier movies even better than this, Love Killer Clans. That was a really good thing that he did. Clans of Intrigue, Death Duel. I mean, those kinds of things I thought he was the best at doing.
Magic Blade's great with T Long. That's a fantastic one, and T Long is really good in it. I remember being one of his better performances. I always like him though. He's got a great heroic kind of attitude.
Yeah, and what a long career too. I mean, I think he started directing movies in like 57. So I mean,
Yeah.
his body of work is huge and quite varied as far as like the types of films that he was doing.
Yeah, he was with Shaw since 1971 and he stayed until 85 they were closing. So he kind of got in there at a good time too.
Yeah. Oh, and
And
he did the piece in Haunted Tales too.
yeah, which
That
with
was one of
along
one of his
along with
the other one that there were two unfinished films that they released
along
as
with
an anthology.
the crazy guy from Men Behind the Sun. I just want to refer to him because I think whoever directed Men Behind the Sun has to be crazy.
TF Moo, yeah.
I think he has to be nuts. Am I wrong?
I don't know if he's crazy. I think he knows how to get what he wants to do and does not care about what people think about his movies whatsoever.
I
He's
mean,
going to do what he's going to do.
Lost Souls has a gay rape scene, which pretty unheard of in a Shaw Brothers movies. Or I can't believe they got in a Shaw Brothers movie. To be honest, I can't think of any. I mean, they sometimes will have a gay character in the movie, will be like a villain or like a comedic character of sorts, but never typically a scene like that. You know what I mean? Played
Yeah.
straight too. It was pretty crazy.
Yep. Agreed.
But again, this is one that I think is well worth watching if you're into fantasy. I think it has the most DNA on this list with Portrait in Crystal, even with the opening narration that kind of sums up the world. And they don't spend much time in both these movies. They're just kind of right off the bat, they say, this is what's happening. This is kind of the area where we're at here. And then they just jump right in.
Yep. That seems to be the case with a lot of those films, Shaw Brothers films from maybe like 81 to about 84. We see
They didn't
a
even,
lot more of this kind of thing.
they just wanted to get it over with. Like, and that's why they say another Shaw Brothers movie at the end, another Shaw production. I always found that very funny because it seems like even the producers are exhausted. Another Shaw production.
Yep. They only really did, I think, 84 Siamese twins. That's the
Yeah.
last horror film they did.
There's one listed as 85, but it seems to be more of a crime film. Pursuit of the Killers or something.
Yeah, I would lump that more, yeah, more in a crime
Yeah.
genre than a horror genre. But yeah,
That tends to happen. They'll put stuff like the Savior or the happenings from they'll kind of list that as like kind of pseudo horror movies. They're not Shaw movies, but they're from Hong Kong. You know what I mean? They kind of have
yep,
DNA of horror, but at most they're just kind of dark crime films.
yeah. I mean, you could lump Enchantress or, Portrait in Crystal into a few different genres
Yeah.
because they have elements of all of them.
I do think they're more mean-spirited in the violence and stuff that I would put, especially Portrait in Crystal would be a horror film.
Yeah, that's the closest of the last three that we were talking about here that to a
Is a
horror
horror
film.
film.
Yeah, the first two we did, those are that's
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 100%.
horror. Yeah,
There's 2.5 horror films here.
yeah, I think that sounds about right.
All right. Well, I'm good on the Enchantress, but interesting movie nonetheless.
Yep, I agree. Beautiful to look at. It's a gorgeous thing.
So the last one that we're going to talk about is probably the odd man out here, and it's interesting to talk about because it's a Shaw film, but it's also interesting to talk about because it kind of resembles a subgenre within Hong Kong horror and supernatural films that we haven't really talked about yet. This is Ghost Galore, and I'm not sure how to say this director's name, but he's more of an actor. He doesn't have much information about him. As much as you search for how many movies this guy was in, over 100 films, he just
Yeah.
doesn't have that much information about the guy, to be honest. Worked from 66 to 93, and he also directed Kid from Tong from 82, which is it's a pretty fun kind of borderline, very loose horror film too.
Susia.
Yeah, Susia. That's always trouble for me.
Yep.
The HSU is always really hard.
It's confusing for Guilos.
What's that? Is that a slang for white guys?
Uh, white devil, white foreigner, white ghost. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Gringo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Susia.
yeah, Susia. There we go. So I should mention the producer of this movie, Mona Fong. She produced
Yep.
all these movies. All 5 of these movies produced by her.
Yep. And she, basically got put in that role by Run Run Shah, even though she had basically no experience doing these sorts of things. I think she was sort of a lady friend of his. That's how I'll say it. And
That's
he's
right.
just like, "Oh yeah, you go do this." So that's how she ended up doing the producing of a lot of these movies. And some people really did not get along with her very well because she was very strict about things. And I can't remember the movie, but there was one movie that she was producing, and she's like, "Well, we don't have the budget to do full-sized weapons. So she basically sent them like half-size swords and weapons for this movie, and the director's like, no, we can't do this.
That's
That's the
horrible.
kind of stuff she would do.
So we should mention also the editor. The same editor on four of these five movies did all of them except The Enchantress, which is crazy to me because none of these movies have the same phonetic pacing at all.
No,
Absolutely nothing alike. None of these movies in terms of editing.
they're all completely different from each other.
It's almost to say that they just kind of did what Ennio Morricone would do, where they would just say like the three big composers at the time, they would just put one of their names on it, even though they all were working on it. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I feel like it just had to be a group editor. It's just so weird to me. It's like the Alan
makes
Smithy of Hong Kong. Oh boy. So this story here, I don't even know how to go about it. Uh this is a weird one. This is kind of in line with something like fake ghost snatchers, where you have these kind of charlatan kind of ghost communicators that end up getting caught up in a kind of a weird real life ghost encounter and a whole big ordeal with ninjas, which kind of overtake the entire plot here. We have the Japanese kind of weird ninja invasion thing going on here. So I don't really know what the hell's going on in this movie, to be honest.
it is confusing, uh, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. The ninja element of this movie, they're just kind of walking around the woods, and all of a sudden, there's a brother and sister who are getting pursued by ninjas.
Yeah. The two lead actors in here are both in Demon of the Loot. One plays kind of the main kind of the character, the flying monkey character, and the other plays Fat Elf in a small role. The heavy set guy's not in very many movies, but the other one's in tons of movies. Seventh Curse, Mr. Vampire, and of course Lolei is in here as kind of like their kind of boss, I
Yep.
guess.
Chin Siu Ho is the main
Yeah,
actor who I think that most people that are into these kind of movies are gonna recognize him from Mr. Vampire.
yeah,
That's kind of what, but he's in a lot of stuff, and I've always really enjoyed him.
I
Chiang
like him in
Kam
this.
is the chubby guy that's in the movie, and I find him hilarious in
He's
this
funny.
movie. Yep, he's really funny. And I'm not exactly sure. The beginning of the movie slightly confuses me because I almost want to say that Lolea almost created these characters.
It's really
Um,
weird opening, and like I don't think they expected this movie to be in HD because when the big guy jumps out of the little tub, you see a little bit more than expected.
you do. And this is one of those movies that, I was only able to get on the Z Eagle Shaw box. And now, Shout Factory has, in their newest Volume 8 set of the Shaw Brothers Classic, we finally have this and the Enchantress now in an upgraded HD format.
Great timing though, honestly. This the Shawscope 4 came out and this, and we finally got Enchantress, Portrait in Crystal, and Ghost Galore and Blu-ray for the first time.
It is. It's an exciting time, and I've never seen it. This is Hong Kong has been so ripe for discovery for years. I was really hoping that this would happen years ago, and now it's almost too much. I almost can't afford to buy all the stuff
Yeah, I'm getting
that
at that
is
point too.
that is coming out, and I hope that people really appreciate like that. Shawscope Volume 4 from Arrow
It's
is,
brilliant.
and it's an astonishing set. It's only jaded old guys like me that I'm double and triple dipping on a lot of the movies in the set. But for someone in their 20s and 30s, who I'm seeing a lot of younger people into these movies, that set is gold. They're so lucky to be able to find these easily now. It's great.
Yeah, and I only think I had Seating of a Ghost. And I had seen a lot of those movies. I was shocked. I was like, "Oh wow, now I know I'm actually getting into a certain debt," because when that set came out, I was like, I'd seen more than half of the movies in the set because they're horror movies, and I like the horror movies. So you know what I mean? They're all like kind of horror or Jason and stuff like that. But this one feels a lot like Fake Ghost Snatchers, which is in that set as well.
Yeah.
Um, But I think I prefer Fake Ghost Snatchers because it has the Alexander Fushang and who's the other actor? The actor, the other comedic actor, the real skinny guy. I love him in that too.
I can't
House
think off the top of my head.
It has the same first name as this director, which I
I,
won't embarrass myself saying.
no, not this time.
No, I had to phonetically spell out a lot of the Hong Kong names for my 1982 video just to make sure that I got them fairly close. You know what I mean?
Well, my wife is Chinese, so I asked her Chinese aunt and mom to read the Chinese characters for me for a lot of the actors. I mean, some of them I already knew how to pronounce, but yeah, it's nice to be able to have that.
Well, my partner can speak Japanese, so that's good with me with Japan. I'm like, how do you say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that helps, but I can't speak any language except a little Spanish.
yeah, it's interesting to be able to do that. Um, hopefully, I don't. I'm sure I didn't pronounce everything exactly correctly. The vowel clusters in some of these Asian languages are really difficult for English speakers to learn how to say.
So on this one here, where would you rate this amongst the kind of comedic elements here? I feel like this kind of loses the supernatural elements and like was that movie like Shadow Boxing, which is more of a comedic film, but it has like two or three horror elements or scenes in it. I feel like this is more in line with that.
And once we get to the ninjas, it kind of falls away. And it's
Yeah.
like, how many ghosts make a galore? Two? I think, is that how many ghosts we have in this movie? I want to say it's two.
Yeah. And
It's
it
not,
also
when I first saw this movie or heard about this movie, I was expecting a galore of ghosts.
like Till Death Do We Scare. Now that's a ghost galore. The end of that
Yeah.
movie, it's a whole ghost party.
Yeah.
That's a great movie too. But that's a whole ghost galore. This is not a ghost galore. And this just kind of lifts again from Encounters of the Spooky Kind.
Yeah.
It's
And I,
just
I do like some of the things that they did. The very imaginative taking the erotic drawings and turning it into a being that they're trying to fight. I thought that was really great and really interesting towards the beginning of the movie.
yeah, that was
But
fun.
yeah, but once he gets turned into a ghost, Fatty gets turned into a ghost, we kind of really lose the sort of ghost sort of horror aspect of the movie, and it goes more about trying to save the Japanese girl.
Yeah. From the weird
Because
Japanese infusion kind of like thing, which is the last movie had the Japanese thing going on too.
it does. And they're all played by Chinese
Of
folks
course,
as
of
well.
course.
So,
That's like
uh,
Men Behind the Sun again. There's no Japanese guy who's gonna come in and just do that movie.
but yeah, it is an uneven film. I like parts of it quite a bit, but it's still definitely worth seeing for lovers of Shaw Brothers and Shaw Brothers horror films. It's something that people should definitely see, I feel, even if it's not going to end up being one of their favorites, maybe on the list. You should check it out as far as like the canon of Shaw.
You should watch Encounters of the Spooky Kind first, though, if you haven't seen it.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that's one of the bona fide classics. Literally started the comedy horror genre in
I feel like
Hong
if
Kong.
Sam Raimi saw that, you know what I mean? Somebody had to see that one.
Well, it's a good thing Samo didn't listen to everybody because every single person he knew told him not to do Encounters of the Spooky Kind. Actors, producers, directors, everybody was just like, don't do that. No, please, what are you doing? He didn't listen and he did his own movie and you saw the result. It's an
It's
amazing
classic.
accomplishment.
Yeah, and I only saw that for the first time too when I did 1980.
Yeah, that's amazing to me that you're just seeing these for the first time.
Like
Uh,
it's funny for me is like I'll see like the most obscure movie 16 times. And then they're like, "Have you seen this?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is." Like I'll know what it is, but I haven't seen it. It's strange, you know what I mean?
yeah, and that was one where that was a difficult movie to see too. You could get the Chinese tape, but it was full frame, subtitles cut off, subtitles burned in. Anytime anybody had white on the screen, you couldn't read the
Couldn't read it. I
subtitles.
hate that so bad.
But we had a theater in town here, the Riverview, that did Hong Kong screenings. We had an Asian media access, and I was able to go see Encounters of the Spooky Kind in the theater here in the mid 90s a few times. So I was lucky enough to be able to do that before we eventually did get better video releases, like Tai Sing finally put out a widescreen tape with
Tyson put
proper
out
subs.
lots of great stuff.
They did. Yep. And we're still seeing Frank Zhang do tons of stuff nowadays. I don't know if there's a better person to do Chinese film commentaries than
No,
Frank
he's great.
Zhang.
He knows all the box office and everything and all the actors just riddles. I don't even think he preps. I think he just knows the stuff.
He knows the locations. He knows everything. Speaks the language. I mean, knows the slang of the language, which, that's just lost to us and lost in
Yeah.
translation a lot of times. Um, that
That's why I
guy,
think Ghost Galore is lost in translation. I think some of the
yeah,
comedy is for
yeah.
sure.
He's my favorite as far as like guys who do commentaries for these sorts of things. It's, you know, it's almost all white people that are doing the commentaries for these movies. So to me, it's really refreshing to have him come in and just lay down these tracks where it's just like the information that he gives is just like astonishing.
Oh, Arnie Venema does a pretty good job too, and he's actually located in Hong Kong, so that helps.
Yeah.
Living in Hong Kong, that helps, and he does it with Mike Leader, who is a stunt coordinator and stuff like that in those movies. So that helps that they're native. They at least live there, so they know what the fuck they're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's really good. And then there's another fellow who's the name escapes me off the top of my head, but he is also same thing, very well versed in
James
these.
Munge.
Yep, that's it. James
Yeah, he's
Mudge.
good too.
He's
There's a lot
great.
of them. There's a lot of them, especially on the Shaw Scope. These sets, these commentaries, and it's really hard to talk about these movies, especially going after those guys because you're repeating so much of the same information because there's only X amount of actors, directors, writers, producers. They're pretty much very much the same people in all these movies.
I wanted to mention Tony Rayans too, an
He's good.
older British
Yeah.
guy, and actually went to Shaw Studios and interviewed like Kuei Chi-Hung and things like that. That is sort of like invaluable knowledge that I'm glad that we're getting to hear and have a record of.
Also, Michael Worth typically does a lot of the commentaries with Frank Chin, and he's a good partner.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's good guys out there doing it, and I learned a lot from those people. I'm proud. The problem is, I'm a novice on this stuff. I enjoy learning it though. That's why I'm trying to have guests on that know what they're talking about on a lot of this stuff. I mean, I know my horror movies, but I don't know everything about everything. But I'm enjoying going down these, man. It's very rewarding to discover a lot of these things and learn about a country through their movies, and that's pretty much how I've learned about many countries in my life is through their film.
No, me too. I mean, I started watching all the American films, obviously growing up, and then Japan was the first country that I really started paying attention to as far as like foreign films, and then Italy and Spain, and then sort of came into the Hong Kong stuff and the Indonesian stuff.
I'd be Italy first, and then Spain, and then Japan.
Yep.
Then probably Hong Kong, you know. But and then Indonesia. I've seen quite a bit of Indonesian. I've seen pretty much all the Indonesian horror films from the early '80s, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. All the obscure ones too. Even making my own subtitles for some of them, like Leech Wizard, stuff like that.
That was a tough one to find for a long time, was Leech Wizard. And for people who like the animal attack, nature gone amok sort of films, you really need to see that one too.
Yeah, it's basically Cronenberg in Indonesia. They all
Yep.
turn to like zombies, like it's shivers or something. It's very fun. But how would you rank these movies out of the five we covered today?
Well, to me, Box's Omen is one of my all-time favorite Hong Kong movies, so that's number one to me. City of a Ghost, Portrait in Crystal, the Enchantress and Ghost Galore kind of tied for me.
I got Boxer's Omen as one, just because it's such a accomplishment, you know. Then I have Portrait in Crystal. Then I have Seeing of Ghosts. Then Enchantress, then Ghost Galore.
Roll with that.
I mean, I do think though I would recommend Seeing of a Ghost over Portrait in Crystal though, just because you know what I mean. It's just more approachable for normal people. I think, as crazy as that
Yeah.
sounds.
Yes. Yeah. Boxers, Omen, and Seating are definitely the heavy hitters of this episode. You know,
Yeah.
those are
How would
two of
you?
the. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, how would you compare it to the rest of the horror films from 1983?
It's probably my favorite one. There's other
Really?
ones that I do like. Yeah, I just love Boxer's Omen so much. Um,
Ooh.
there's other one. Are you talking about Hong Kong or
No, I'm
in
talking about
general?
all 1983 horror
Oh
films.
man, I'd have to
So,
look.
so
But
let me just name some off the top of my head. Is Boxer's Omen better than Christine?
for me, yes,
Is it better than Deadly Spawn?
yes.
Is it better than Something Wicked This Way Comes?
You know what? I haven't seen that in so long. I cannot say. I watched your video recently of it, and I literally haven't seen that movie in probably 30 years.
It's a good one. I'm trying to think. I think what about Sleepaway Camp?
Yes.
Angst.
Yeah.
Have you seen
Yeah.
Angst?
Yeah. The is that German or Austrian?
Austrian, Austrian.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've seen it. It's been a long time, but yeah, I got to put Boxes Omen up on top there.
Videodrome?
Videodrome tops. Videodrome would is one of my is probably in my all-time top 5 favorites, so I can't rank it
Okay.
above Videodrome.
Dead Zone?
Definitely better than Dead Zone.
What else? Cujo.
Yes.
1983 is not nearly as strong as 1981 or 82.
I don't think so either.
And I'm ashamed because when I made my top 25 of 81, Bewitched and Corpse Mania were honorable mentions. They didn't make my top 25, and they would probably be in my top 10 of 1983 if they came out that year.
Yeah, I
That's
could
how
see
strong
that.
81 is. 81's really strong. Just too many of them.
There is. I mean, there's some of my favorite movies ever came out in 81. So
Yeah.
81 and 82, just things that I grew up watching, like Howling and The Thing and those kinds of
Yeah.
things. You know,
Yeah. They're just,
they're I can't I I could rank those above the Chinese movies only because the nostalgia factor for those is so high for me because I did see a bunch of those in the theater when I was a kid, and they're just some of my favorite movies still to this day.
yeah. But the true favorites are ones that hold up and they have nostalgia. So you got a little bit of both. You know what I mean? It's rare that you pop in one that if it sucks, you still have some affinity for it, but it won't be a favorite. You know, there's some movies I liked as a kid that I know aren't good, but still enjoy them.
Oh yeah, I have a ton of guilty favorites,
Yeah,
guilty pleasures, I would say, for sure. There's always stuff like that, you know. Obviously I didn't start watching the Chinese movies until, like I said, like 92 or something. So I was 20 years old at that time, so I was an adult by the time I started watching these. The ones that I saw as a kid, stuff like Dawn of the Dead and Suspiria and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, will always be highest. Texas
yeah.
Chainsaw is always my number one movie. It's been that way for 40 years. I don't think it's gonna get knocked off the top.
That's like Day of the Dead for me. It's just like, some people like when you ask somebody, "What's your favorite horror movie?" "Oh, I don't know." And I'm like, "How do you not know? Are you not a crazy psycho like the rest of us?" Like, I think most people that are crazy into it have a favorite. You know?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's hard to make a list, you know, that's what's your top five or what's, you know, if I could make a list of like the top 25, that would probably be easier.
It's hard though, because then you get like 50 on the list, and you're like, "Oh, do I like Brain Damage better than Basket Case? I don't know." You know what I mean? Like you get to that point, you're like,
Exactly.
"Who the fuck know?" Like, You know you got to have at least like 6 or 7, and then you keep going down. You're like, I don't know which one's better.
Yeah. Exorcist is always high on my list too. I mean, of all the movies I ever saw growing up, there was no movie that scared me as bad as The Exorcist. It literally freaked me the fuck out.
Trying to think of any movie that really, really scared me as a kid. It'd be something stupid like From a Whisper to a Scream, and I saw it way too young. Like just the little creature under the couch, and the Offspring, the one with
Yeah,
Glue Gulliver, fucked me up.
yeah. There's some of those things that you can't, that's priceless, those kinds of experiences that you have
Yeah.
with those movies like 1981, The Howling, as the very first R-rated horror movie I ever went to in the theater in my life. And I
What
still
else?
have a huge, I know I'm more on the side with Art Ettinger. I know
Ha!
you're gonna go into American Werewolf in London.
I like American Werewolf in London better,
No,
but
I
I
like
like
it
The
too.
Howling. I
I
like The
like The
Howling. It's
Howling
good.
better. Yeah.
But that was so funny when they're like the pasting's off, and then they're like, "Oh, but Anthropophagus isn't it?" It's like dead
That
on.
was
The Anthrop
a great discussion you had with those guys. And I
It's
texted
fun.
Art after I watch it and I says, Howling number one forever. And he's just like, those guys are crazy.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say the pasting in Anthropophagus was. You know what I mean? Like I like The Howling.
It was one of the other guests, I think, that said it. But yeah, it was just funny talking to Art about that video. And he
The
was
funny
the only one who was like, the Howling.
and Art's usually not the voice of reason.
Yeah. I think he would be
Like
I think he would
Art's the
admit
oddball.
that.
Art's the oddball, but I mean, we're all everybody has a crazy take. Everybody's got a couple. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, it just happens. But the problem is you don't want too many crazy takes because then everybody just thinks you're nuts.
very true.
Can't take their opinion serious if you got too many crazy ones. I appreciate you doing this. Do you have any plugs?
Nothing I got something I'm working on, but I can't say
Of
right now
course.
what it is. But there's a couple people I'd like to mention.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I definitely always want to thank Bob Selvig, who was my mentor with Hong Kong films and lots of films in general. Um, Art Ettinger, Bruce Holecheck, and then the Discover the Horror guys, Aaron Abishon, John Kitley, Damian Glonick, and Hellbent for Horror, S.A. Bradley. Always want to mention him. Those are some of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life, all of them. And they really gave me a chance to go somewhere and talk about this stuff. And I was really reluctant to do so because I'd never done it. I still don't do social media, but I do have, I guess, a knowledge base that maybe some people would appreciate. And Art Ettinger is the one that got me started doing anything like this. Full credit to him. And I also would like to say hi to all the Cinema Wasteland friends that I have. And there's quite a few of them now. Great people.
Yeah. Great people. You named a lot of great people. I don't know all of them personally, but I've heard some of the podcasts and stuff and they do a great job. I should have asked a couple Hong Kong books that you'd recommend, pieces of literature, maybe for horror fans out there, because I know you work at a bookstore, run a bookstore, so.
Yeah. There's not a definitive guide to like Hong Kong horror. There, there never has been. Somebody should do one. But definitely essential guide to Hong Kong movies. There's a new revised edition, which I believe you bought from us at Cinema
Yep.
Wasteland. That's good. The revision is really nice. Hong Kong Filmography by John Charles is an essential guide. Um, the Asian Trash Cinema / Asian Cult Cinema books by Thomas Wessier are essential. There's a book called Spooky Encounters, A Guilo's Guide to Hong Kong Horror, which is really good. There's a University Press book called Hong Kong Horror, which is good. Trying to think of any others off the top of my head. There's a few others that I'm probably leaving off here. Oh, the probably mispronouncing his name, but the Julian Sevian, the French Category 3 film book is tremendous, and it does cover some of the precursors to Category 3 films in there, and there's interviews in the book with people that aren't around anymore. And now that we've gotten to a point where you can literally, point your phone at a book in French and it translates, it's on the fly.
Really?
It's a difficult book to find, but it's a stunning full color coffee table book. If you can track one down, it's really good. I would also recommend the other Eastern Heroes books besides the Essential Guide to Hong Kong Movies. Deadly China Dolls, which is about all the Hong Kong film actresses, is really good. And then the Best of Eastern Heroes they did, which I hope they reissue those books too. I think those would really find a brand new audience now if they could get those out. But yeah, those are some of the books that I have enjoyed over the years. And like I said, I'm probably forgetting a couple, but yes, those ones.
Thanks. It's a lot of information there. I appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we'll be back for part 2, which is non-Shaw horror movies. And I probably I don't want to give the titles away just in case one of them changes here or there. But I'm looking forward to seeing them because I don't think I've seen any of them.
And that's exciting to me. And I'm actually slightly more excited to do that one just because some of these are more obscure, where we're talking about movies in some cases that haven't had a release past a VHS, or a Laserdisc is the best copy. So these will be really fun because people can take a deeper dive into Hong Kong horror in general. It should be fun.
Yeah, I hope people tune in for this and the next one because sometimes it's hard to determine what's going to be popular, what's going to do well, what's not going to do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I hope people check it out and learn something about these Hong Kong movies like I am learning.
Awesome. I'm glad. Like I said, I'm slightly jealous that you are getting to see some of these for the first time. That's amazing.
And it's crazy, how many horror movies I have seen, but just a lot of those countries they weren't available growing up
Yep.
for the longest time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But now they are. So it's a great time to be alive for film collectors.
It is.
If everything else is terrible, just you can buy all the movies you want.
As long as you got a lot of money.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, I watched it a few weeks ago, probably, and I listened to the commentaries again and stuff like that. Wanted the commentary twice. It was one of those ones that was just like, it's just flat. Ghost Galore's flat to me. It's fine. I don't mind it. You know what I mean? But it's not a memorable. You know what I mean?
That was one of the ones that was on the Z Eagle set. And obviously that just came out
Yeah.
on the new, what is it? The Shout Factory Shaw Brothers Classic sets.
Yeah.
So every year my Z Eagle set becomes less, which I'm fine with. I'm totally fine with. But for a while it was like, look what I got. Sort of.
Yeah.
It was a fun thing to have. One of these days I should take a picture of it and take a picture of the booklet that it came with, because it came with a really thick booklet about with the movies listed inside of it.
Nice. I like that though. There's a lot of movies that I've had on VHS, and over the years, I was like, no longer need this VHS. I keep them now just because, but there's so much stuff that I've upgraded. The list is so small now. Like you think of movies when you were like 15 that you wanted on DVD or something like that, and the only one that I'm like still like, well, when are we gonna get Nightlife with Scott Grimes? Like that's probably
Yeah.
one of the only ones that's in my, you know what I mean? Like one of the
Yeah.
ones that I liked as a lot as a kid that's not had a nice release.
And they're still they're even more so in the second sort of wave of 1983 Hong Kong things that we'll talk about
Yeah.
on the next video. So many of those we haven't, like the accident. There's nothing, there's no more than a VHS.
Well,
That's
look
it.
at these
This-
notable horror films, Hong Kong horror films from the 80s up till 83. The Count of Spooky Kind has a Blu-ray. We're Going to Eat You only has a DVD. The Beast
Yep.
doesn't have really anything. Love Massacre doesn't have anything. Kung Fu Zombie doesn't have much. The Imp has a DVD, but not a stateside DVD, I don't think. Phantom Killer doesn't have anything. Life After Life doesn't have anything. That's a fun movie. Dreadnought has a Blu-ray. Centipede Horror has a Blu-ray. Chlamydia of Snakes has a Blu-ray. Ghost Nursing has a Blu-ray. Dead and Deadly has a Blu-ray. He Lives by Night has nothing. Kung Fu from Beyond the Grave has not really anything. To Hell with the Devil doesn't have anything. Till Death Do We Scare has a DVD. Behind the Storm has nothing. Expensive Taste has nothing. And Mariana has nothing.
Yep. And that's where there is a lot of stuff in my besides the Shaw Brother ones that are getting released. There is a large group of films in my collection that are we going to ever see something?
Some of
But
them we won't.
some of them I was just shocked. I remember I almost fell out of my chair when Vinegar Syndrome dropped Ghost Nursing. I could not believe that.
Well, they stopped giving a fuck about the music. I
Yeah.
don't think that the big studios are going to come for them because I don't think they know.
Yeah.
I don't think they care anymore.
Yeah.
So
Some of
and that was holding it back because they're like I'm like, is that Death Wish 2? What the fuck? I'm here Jimmy Page in this fucking 1982 fucking low budget movie. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I was just there's so many of these things that we just haven't, like Crazy Blood. I love that movie.
Not watched that yet. I'm excited to see that one.
It's I think I almost want to say I feel like I like it better than other people. What I appreciate about it is so freaking dark. It is there's almost no humor in it. And
That's
you
rare
know,
for a Hong Kong.
I know that's the thing, and that's why I like it so much. And that next, sort of video that we would do, it's going to be like the Eddie Chen show because he's in so many of those movies right at that time, the horror films. Um, but yeah, same Crazy Blood, the Laserdisc is the best way to go. There still hasn't been the Brutal Sorcery, the, the
I don't think I've
Laserdisc.
seen any of those movies that are coming up in that next one.
Oh man. Yeah, Brutal Sorcery. I wanted to send you the English dub because it is one of the funniest motherfucking things that you're gonna see. It's hilarious.
I love when they're like, stop bullying me. It's like he just sexually assaulted that woman. I don't think that's bullying. Like it doesn't translate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you'll get a kick out of some of those movies. I really hope that you like them.
I'm sure I will.
Love The Accident. Kent Chang is tremendous
He's a
in The
great
Accident.
actor.
Yeah, he's good in it. And, kind of the way he interacts with the little girl in the movie is almost a precursor to the way he acts with his daughter in Run and Kill.
I love
It's
Run and Kill.
it's the same sort of like he's great with the kid.
You could tell that dude was a good guy.
Yeah,
I love
apparently it
his.
was. Oh, go ahead.
No, what
Go
were you
ahead.
gonna say?
Apparently that was Kent Chang's idea to burn the little girl in Run and Kill. I guess he suggested that to Billy Tang, which I'm just like, God damn, dude.
Him and the Beast at the end when he walks in the water and drowns himself. That's so
Yeah,
fucked up. That part's
it
like dark
it is.
because he's all by
Yeah,
himself and he doesn't
it
deserve
is.
it. He's just he doesn't. He's just victim of whoever he's around. You know what I mean?
I'll have to send you the composite I have of the beasts too.
I have like two or three copy
Okay.
versions of the Beast, but I don't know if I have that one.
It's kind of it's just a couple little snippets, and it's from the UK tape. So
Ah,
it's kind of jarring because all of a sudden it'll be in English for just a quick second.
I
But
like the nasty dude with the bad teeth. He's such a good villain.
yeah, especially when he's sitting there eating that goddamn
Licks the
pork with
hook.
that. Yeah. And he's eating that the pig that they killed with his nasty teeth. It's a really
Uh,
a grubby movie.
he's in that Mob Flicks Patrol too, isn't he? He's one of the rapists. He's great in that too. And there's
Yeah.
like two or three of the guys that are
Yep.
bad guys in that in the Beast. They must have just grabbed the cast, and Kent Chang's in that too.
Yep. Yeah. And he, Art freaked out over that movie. I gave him when him and Bruce, when I was doing stuff behind the scenes with them, just giving him movies and reference materials for the Air 44 releases. I sent them beasts, and Art lost his shit over the beasts. I got a text message from him all in caps. I fucking love the
He never
beast.
seen that one?
He had never seen it.
That's what I saw young too. See, like it's weird. Like I hadn't seen Boxer's Omen, but I seen The Beast. So it's just like it's just random. I had a bootleg that I watched, and I remember really liking that movie. Stood with me.
I think
The
it's a
co
great movie.
the cover art's
Um,
great. It's got all their
I
faces on that thing.
I have a DVD of it. There was a Hong Kong DVD of it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
that.
No, I should send you a copy of that. It might. I'd have to see what you got and see how it looks.
I've probably got two or three versions on the Plex, so you can check.
I've got two versions. I've got that DVD and then I've got that composite that my friend and I did.